On the way back to the mansion in the carriage, she just kept staring at Mo Yao quietly. He was so gentle with her today that it made her feel a little bit unusual. Seeing this, Mo Yao asked if he had ever treated her badly before. Then he softly asked if she had been feeling lonely lately. Yili just smiled and insisted she had never felt lonely. Not long after, Mo Yao noticed red rashes appearing on her neck. He immediately called a doctor to check on her. After checking her pulse, the doctor concluded she just had a food allergy caused by eating creeping fig fruit. As long as she didn't scratch the rash, drank plenty of water, and rested for a few days, she would be completely fine. After bathing, Yi Li and Mo Yao sat in the yard to soak up the sun. Mo Yao kept reminding her not to scratch, because the rash would be gone by the next day. When he heard Yi Li say she would sleep with Ching Chang tonight, Mo Yao immediately decided to stay in her room. He slowly said that they had been married for a while. Before, because his legs hadn't healed, and he also didn't know what she was thinking, he had always kept his distance. But now things were different. It was time for them to truly become husband and wife. Those unexpected words made Yi Li blush immediately. Her heart raced, and she felt completely awkward from shyness. Mo Yao gently pulled her into his arms and said, "I hope from now on, every single day of yours can be as happy as today." He said he would always be by her side to go through everything with her. From now on, they would be family to each other. Hearing those words made Yi Li smile. Gu Jing finally caught the spy, Qiu Xian, who was a squad leader in the military office. From the account books, he found that his salary was only enough for daily expenses, yet he had money to buy a house. Plus, on the night they were chasing Chi Hu in Punlai Alley, he disappeared for half an hour, which was very suspicious. Knowing this, Wang Wu got super angry and immediately questioned Qiu Xian to force some clues out of him. Having the necessary lead, he led his men to the Manji incense shop to investigate. Unexpectedly, as soon as they arrived, the shop manager killed himself on the spot. After that, Wang Wu went back to report to Tu Yao that the spy was indeed Qiu Xian, while the manager at the West Market incense shop had died to keep his mouth shut. What is worth noting is that this guy used to serve at the Eastern Palace. After the big fire 8 years ago, he was exiled, but surprisingly he was still able to hide for all those years. Hearing the news that Zhang Shi also showed up at the incense shop that day, Tu Yao immediately asked to investigate him. Over at Prince Li's mansion, Sui Xian and Qing Bao were rushing to destroy all the evidence. Mo Li even secretly arranged to have Ying leave, and right after that, his room suddenly caught fire violently. Ying cried and screamed, wanting to rush in to save him, but everyone held her back tight. Outside the mansion, Tu Yao happened to run into Lord Muyang. Just then, Wang Wu ran over and reported that Mo Li had led a few close followers to set a fire and burn themselves. Princess Li was so shocked that she passed out. Tu Yao immediately ordered his men to put out the fire and bring the body to the Jingzhou office to investigate and confirm the identity. At Prince Deng's mansion, Yi Li saw the fire lighting up the sky from Prince Li's mansion and couldn't help but feel worried. Not long after, Tu Yao came back and broke the news that Mo Li had died in the fire. Hearing that, Yi Li was totally shocked and immediately went with him to the Jingzhou office to check the body. The doctor who often treated Mo Li confirmed that although the body was burned black, the old wounds and the missing left molar perfectly matched his features. When the Empress Dowager heard the news, she immediately ordered Lord Muyang to lead the Dali court to block the city gates. Anyone involved with Mo Li or the Eastern Palace leftovers had to be arrested. Right the next morning, a large-scale raid took place, all over the capital. The atmosphere was more tense than ever. Tu Yao then analyzed for Yi Li that Mo Li might have prepared everything in advance. Maybe he knew his identity, and secrets were about to come out, so he staged this whole play. But Yi Li didn't believe someone like Mo Li would be willing to die so easily. When he arrived at the Jingzhou office, Tu Yao ran into Lord Muyang, who was ordering his men to arrest Wang Wu. The old man gave the excuse that Wang Wu's fourth uncle used to be in charge of buying things for the Eastern Palace, and Wang Wu himself showed up during the chase in Punlai Alley, so he was very suspicious. Lord Muyang kept bringing up the Empress Dowager's orders, so Mo Yao couldn't openly stop him. Then, he boldly took Wang Wu away. Holding back his anger, Mo Yao called Zhang Shi into the room to talk. As soon as the door closed, he kicked him hard in the chest, making him spit out blood right away. Zhang Shi was even more terrified when he saw with his own eyes that Mo Yao could stand and walk normally. He immediately tried to use the Empress Dowager to threaten Mo Yao, saying he would report him. But Mo Yao just coldly threw a stack of laws in his face, saying that picking any one of them would be enough to punish him. He even warned that even if he killed him today, no one would speak up for him. He was the one who told everything to Lord Muyang, so if anything happened to Wang Wu, he shouldn't expect to live in peace. Zhang Shi turned pale with fear and kept kneeling down to beg for his life. After that, Mo Yao ordered Gu Zheng to search the entire Prince Li mansion again to see if there were any secret passages or tunnels leading out. Because the body was burned so badly, it was hard to be sure if the dead person was really Mo Li. Right then, Mo Yao got news that Yi Ying had tried to kill herself. Luckily, she was found in time, so she was still alive. Lord Muyang wanted to arrest Yi Ying for questioning, but Yi Li immediately stood up to stop him. She questioned if they wanted to drive the main wife of a prince to her death. If anything happened, she would personally go to the palace and take the blame from the Empress Dowager. Faced with that tough attitude, Lord Muyang had to back down. After everyone left, Ying burst into tears. She choked up, saying she and Emily had been married for less than half a year, just 100 short days. Marrying him was what made her happiest, and she had truly given everything to love him. Hearing that, Yili softly said, "Liking someone is a beautiful thing, but you shouldn't blindly give all your feelings when you don't even understand them." Emily was the son of a late crown prince. That identity meant his life could burst into flames at any time. Hearing that, Ying suddenly remembered the night of the fire. Before disappearing, Emily had said that if luck was on their side, maybe one day they would have a chance to meet again. Because of those words, she couldn't help but have hope, wondering if Emily was really still alive. Listening to Ying's words, Yili started to suspect there was a secret tunnel inside Emily's room. Right then, Mo Yao appeared. She put her thoughts aside and went back to the mansion with him. Over at Lord Muyang's mansion, Jin Song saw Lord Muyang and Zhou Yang talking happily. The sight of a father and son getting along made him feel a sense of jealousy. In his sadness, he took out Lin Lan's handkerchief to look at it. Right then, Lord Muyang brought a coconut over and told Jin Song to stay at the mansion more so they could talk every day. Then he gave the coconut to him to taste. When he took the first sip, Jin Song noticed a fresh sweetness spreading on his tongue. Meanwhile, at Shendexian, Yili was still focusing on studying the map of the capital S underground water system. She was certain that someone who clings to life and fears death like Emily would absolutely not just burn himself to end his life. After checking the map for a while, she found that Prince Li's mansion was right across from Dehua Ward. If he dug a secret tunnel from the mansion to connect with the underground drains under Dehua Ward and follow the water, he could totally escape. Plus, there was a small river running through the west, so there was a good chance a drain outlet existed leading outside. After figuring that out, Yili set out immediately to investigate. On the way, Han Shi accidentally saw her, so he secretly followed behind. Surprisingly, after following for just a bit, he was caught by Yili. Seeing that he wanted to repay his old debt of gratitude, she just smiled slightly and said it wasn't necessary, then kept going. At the same time, Wang Wu was finally released and returned to the Jingzhou office. However, his whole body was covered in injuries from being tortured while he was locked up. Tu Yao immediately ordered his men to take him for medical treatment. That night, hearing that Tu Yao wouldn't be coming home, Yili disguised herself as a man and quietly went to investigate Prince Li's mansion. On the way, she realized Han Shi was still following her the whole time, so she just decided to have him join her. The two of them sneaked into Prince Li's mansion through the back door. As soon as she stepped into Li's room, Yili noticed a water jar that was missing quite a bit of water. She told Han Shi to fill the jar with water. Surprisingly, as soon as the water reached a certain level, the secret mechanism was activated, revealing an underground path below. Without hesitating, Yili and Han Shi quickly went down into the capital S underground water system. While looking around, Yili found that this underground line stretched southwest, starting from Prince Li's mansion, passing through Bod Hall and Wuwei shop, and leading straight to the shipping dock. The middle part was the main canal for flood discharge, connecting to Dehua Ward and Tuyun Ward before emptying into the Yongding River. Realizing that Yi Li was investigating Li's whereabouts, Han Shi immediately made a serious promise that even if he died, he would absolutely not say a single word about today. After following the underground path for a long way, the two of them finally arrived at a secret location. However, before they could even look around, a group of assassins suddenly appeared and rushed at them all at once to take their lives. Blocked from both the front and the back, Yi Li and Han Shi had no way to retreat. In that critical moment, Han Shi immediately drew his sword and rushed forward to fight. There were so many assassins that even though Han Shi fought with all his life, he couldn't hold them off. He was slashed several times, and then a powerful kick sent him flying back along with Yi Li. Even though he tried his best to stand up, Han Shi was beaten by the assassins until he kept spitting out blood. At the most critical moment, something suddenly flashed in Yi Li's mind. She suddenly rushed into counterattack, with each sword strike being decisive and sharp, and her moves were just like teacher Zhou's back in the day. It was only then revealed that Yi Li actually knew martial arts. After fighting off the assassins, she immediately helped Han Shi to Xiangqi Pavilion for treatment. Just as she stepped outside, Yi Li accidentally saw Mo Yao's carriage, so she hurried away. Mo Yao saw that and ordered someone to follow her secretly. Hiding in a dark corner and hearing him say he was going back to the mansion, Yi Li finally felt relieved and ran back home first. At Xiangqi Pavilion, Li Bai was putting all his effort into saving Han Shi. As for Mo Yao, when he returned to the mansion, he saw that Yi Li was still in her room like nothing had happened. He didn't say anything more and just went to rest with her. The next morning at court, Lord Muyang submitted a report to criticize Yi Li because he thought she was openly interfering with the Dali court's work. Hearing that, Mo Yao immediately fought back and asked if forcing Yi Ying to stay in the great prison until she almost died was considered working hard. Finally, the Empress Dowager decided to let Yi Ying recover on her own. Not stopping there, Mo Yao continued to list Lord Muyang's crimes for using Mo Li's case as an excuse to arrest people randomly. Lord Muyang argued that he was only following the Empress Dowager's orders to help the emperor and get rid of harm for the country. Mo Yao immediately pointed out that in just one day, he had searched more than 30 officials, many of whom were people he didn't get along with. The case didn't have a conclusion yet, but he was using torture to force confessions, clearly using public business to get personal revenge. The emperor heard this and only said to keep investigating to see if those people were actually clean or guilty. After court was over, Lord Muyang actively blocked Mo Yao's path. He laughed coldly and thought the emperor wasn't complaining that he caught too many people, but was worried he hadn't caught them all yet. Then he brought up the death of Mo Yao's older brother and the days he suffered in the dark prison, making the atmosphere extremely tense. On the other side, Yili told Li Bai that the day Mo Li shows up again, it will probably bring a bloodbath. She still believed it was teacher Zhou who saved her the other day, so she insisted he was still in the capital. However, Li Bai said he had searched everywhere and still couldn't find any trace of teacher Zhou. Those words made Li Bai start to get suspicious. He immediately found Han Shi to confirm. But Han Shi insisted that besides him and Yi Li, no one else showed up that day, and he was also very shocked to learn that Yi Li was actually a real sword master. Returning to his room, Li Bai couldn't help but worry, not knowing what kind of illness Yi Li was actually suffering from. In the Empress Dowager's palace, Lin Lan was invited to chat and revealed that in a few days, Princess Ling Yun of the North would enter the capital. Hearing this name, Lin Lan immediately remembered the princess who was once sent away for a political marriage. Unexpectedly, at that time, King He's tribe rebelled, and she had to lead her guards to fight her way back to her home country, then help the young emperor take the throne back from her own father. The Empress Dowager confirmed that it was indeed that princess. This time, she came to the capital with the purpose of choosing a husband she liked for herself. Consort Qin heard this and suggested giving the entire responsibility of the welcome and the banquet to Lord Muyang. After thinking for a while, the Empress Dowager agreed. Right after that, the Empress Dowager told Consort Qin that Lord Muyang was always by her side because of profit. Once greed gets bigger, someone who agrees with you today might not stay loyal tomorrow. Consort Qin also expressed her worry that if Lord Muyang fell, it would affect the Empress Dowager's power. Plus, she also suspected that both the secret decree and the fire at the Eastern Palace years ago were related to him. In response, the Empress Dowager stated that she absolutely would not let anyone ruin the current situation. At Shendexian, Yili was surprised to see Senior Wei Zhuang hire Han Shi to work, and she immediately wanted to kick him out, but Han Shi quickly gave her a letter left by Li Bai. After finishing the letter, Yili still turned and told Wei Zhuang to fire Han Shi. Meanwhile, Fang Jiao couldn't help but wonder. He felt that Mo Yao was always wiser than others on normal days, yet at an important time, he became confused. Because in the current situation, both the Empress Dowager and the little emperor were standing with Lord Muyang, so facing him head-on was absolutely not an easy choice. Right then, Fang Jiao received a letter sent from Yunling. Because of that, he told Mo Yao about his meeting with Yunling 2 years ago. When he went to Shangbei to trade furs, he met her on the road. In Fang Jiao's memory, Yunling was a very special person. Even though she was covered in wounds, she was still tough and resilient, and her physical strength was amazingly powerful. Seeing her extraordinary skills, he was worried something bad might happen, so he invited her to travel with him for a stretch of the road. When both of them crossed the desert, the food and water were all gone. Fang Jiao realized she was hiding her identity as a woman. Dressing up as a man meant she must have gone through a big event and had to wander outside alone. He even suspected that even the name Yunling might not be real. When they said goodbye, Yunling said she would write a letter to him. At that time, Fang Jiao didn't believe it at all, but unexpectedly he actually received a letter later. From then until now, the two of them have always kept in touch through letters, and in the blink of an eye, it has been a full 2 years. In her latest letter, she said she was coming to the capital soon for business. Tu Yao didn't pay much attention at first, but when he happened to look down at the yard and saw Yili playing with a puppy, his eyes followed her for a long time without him realizing it. When he saw Yili leaving with her things, he also quietly got up and left. Outside, Han Shi still followed Yi Li without leaving her side. He insisted that he owed her for 2 lives, and if he didn't pay her back, he wouldn't feel right. But Yi Li didn't care at all. That was when Wei Zhuang explained to Han Shi the reason they were out today. Years ago, 7 students from Mount Li Academy were framed and their bodies were burned. After the officials gathered the bones, they actually sold them back to the families of the dead for 100 coins each. The families couldn't afford it, but when the people in the city found out, everyone generously donated to help. Because of that, today they wanted to go and pay back that old kindness. Then, Yi Li and Wei Zhuang went to each house one by one to thank the people who had helped Mount Li Academy. What surprised Yi Li was that Gu Zhang had also stepped up to help Mount Li back then. Not only that, he even spoke up publicly to defend the academy, so he got dragged into it and had to stay in prison for 8 long years. So Yi Li brought the deed to the house, he was forced to pawn to give it back to him. Tu Yao watched all of this secretly from a distance. The next day at court, Lord Muyang suddenly nominated Tu Yao as vice envoy, in charge of welcoming the princess to the capital. This suggestion was quickly approved by the emperor and the Empress Dowager. When she got back to the mansion, Yi Li checked the condition of Tu Yao's legs and immediately realized that he had walked way too much today. Tu Yao just laughed it off, admitted his fault, and promised to be more careful next time. Right after that, he told her some other news. Prince Li's case had reached a conclusion. The court determined the cause of death was an unexpected fire. In 2 days, the coffin would be taken to a mountain southwest of the capital for burial. After hearing that, Yili didn't show any emotion. She just quietly turned around to keep making medicine. That night, Tu Yao gently moved in, wanting to be close to Yili and fulfill their duties as husband and wife. But she quickly stopped him because his legs were still being treated and the medicine wasn't finished yet, so Tu Yao had to hold back his feelings and helplessly accept it. The next morning, the weather was hot and sticky. Tu Yao and the officials were there early to welcome the northern mission, but they waited and still saw no sign of anyone. Right then, Linlan walked over and reminded him that the mission wouldn't enter the city until 1:15 p.m. Hearing that, Tu Yao immediately understood that Lord Muyang had purposely given him the wrong time just to mess with him. Not long after, the mission arrived. General Lei, who used to fight Mo Yao on the battlefield years ago, immediately mocked him about not being able to stand up and walk as soon as they met. Mo Yao didn't care to argue and immediately invited Princess Ling Yun to change into a new carriage to enter the city and rest. General Lei showed his displeasure, but Mo Yao still firmly demanded to take down the jade decoration on the carriage because it exceeded the rules of Great Chu. The princess didn't want to cause trouble, so she did it right away. After the convoy entered the city, Yunling disguised herself as a man and went to Qingfeng Pavilion to meet Fang Jiao. Even though he knew her real identity, Fang Jiao didn't expose her and just addressed her like a brother. The two of them quickly raised their glasses to drink together, chatting very comfortably. Fang Jiao even promised to take her all around the capital to have fun. Meanwhile, Princess Ling Yun was arranged to stay at Yinshan. Lin Lan came to report that there would be a big feast in the palace tomorrow for the Empress Dowager and the Emperor to welcome the princess. At that time, a carriage would come to pick her up. After saying that, she and Mo Yao asked to leave. However, the truth was actually surprising. The person acting as the princess was actually Sui Dai in disguise, while Yun Ling, Fang Jiao's sworn brother, was the real Princess Ling Yun. The next morning, Ling Yun mentioned that Sui Dai had voluntarily taken down the jade piece on the carriage. Sui Dai explained that General Lei and Prince Ding were arguing endlessly that day, and since the princess wasn't there, she was afraid of blowing her cover, so she gave in. On that note, Sui Dai also brought up the fact that she used to have a marriage arrangement with Prince Ding years ago. But after the Eastern Palace faced disaster, her father was an official there, so the whole family was dragged into it and exiled everywhere. Since then, she completely lost track of Mo Yao. Outside the palace gate, Yi Li and Mo Yao were in charge of welcoming the guests. Yi Li teased, "It's too bad you got married so early, otherwise you could have joined the husband-picking contest." Mo Yao mocked himself, saying that he was just a disabled man, so how could he catch the princess's eye? Hearing that, Yi Li immediately thought to herself, "Does that mean I'm just a fool then?" In the main hall, Qin Song followed Lord Muyang to the party and ran into Linlan by chance. Lord Muyang even planned to let Zhou Yang lead her to see the sights of the capital, but Linlan just calmly replied that she was a local, so she didn't need anyone to lead the way. Not long after, the banquet to welcome the princess officially started. Yi Li noticed Mo Yao kept looking at Sui Dai, so she felt curious. He then told her that he was the one who went out to welcome the mission yesterday, and the person sitting in the carriage back then was definitely not the princess appearing today, but actually the female official next to her. Hearing this, Yi Li couldn't help but admire that Ling Yun was truly brave and full of spirit. With that personality, she was afraid the talented men at the banquet today would have a hard time catching her eye. Right then, Scholar Law from the Imperial Academy suddenly stood up and criticized the princess as a hypocrite. He argued that her father was still in his prime, yet she forced him to step down. The princess calmly replied that her father's health was weak and he was too tired of national affairs, so he actively passed the throne to the younger brother. The younger brother knelt and cried 3 times to refuse, and the father also issued the decree 3 times to hand over the throne. Seeing that Scholar Law looked down on women, Ling Yun continued to fight back. She mentioned that Lin Lan traveled 10,000 miles to write great works. Princess Ding, Yi Li, came from Mount Li Academy and understood the past and present, and Empress Gua handled national affairs for the court to build the country. Faced with those words, Scholar Law could only bow his head in silence. The Empress Dowager immediately stepped in to make peace, asking the princess for forgiveness and letting Scholar Law leave. Then she turned to ask Yi Li what she thought about this. Yi Li calmly replied that Scholar Law's words were just foolish talk. Ancient people used to say that if you don't see it with your own eyes, you shouldn't jump to conclusions. Plus, the princess is very beautiful, and today's banquet brings together many talented young men of great Chu. So it's understandable that someone wanted to use unusual words to get the beauty's attention. That clever answer made the princess praise her a lot, and the Empress Dowager also clapped with satisfaction. A while later, Lin Lan used the excuse of being a bad drinker to ask to go outside for some air. General Lei took the chance to stand up and suggested that the brave men of Great Chu go down to the martial arts stage for a friendly match. The Empress Dowager immediately agreed and gave Lord Muyang the job of preparing the stage. Outside, Lin Lan met Qin Song and bluntly offered to pay him 10 times more than Lord Muyang if he would work for her. She also promised to write a recommendation letter later to help him get a decent government job in the palace. Qin Song didn't answer. He just quietly left the handkerchief behind and turned to walk away. At the Jingzhou office, a person rode in on a horse, totally exhausted, handed a secret message from Huaishi to Gu Zheng, and then fainted right on the spot. After reading the content, Gu Zheng's face changed immediately. He hurried to the palace and ordered Wang Wu to arrest Zhang Yuan right away. In the palace, the fighting stage was finished, and Wu Kai from Yunchuan stepped up to fight General Lei. The two of them fought fiercely, making the atmosphere at the party quickly become tense and heated. Just then, Mo Yao got the news that Gu Zheng was waiting outside the palace, so he went out to meet him. As soon as he saw Mo Yao, Gu Zheng reported that the North was plotting with Zhang Yuan to murder Hang Tong, and this matter very likely involved Lord Muyang. In another place, Qin Song also quickly told Lord Muyang that Mo Yao had gotten the secret message. On the stage, General Lei won the first match. Witnessing Wu Kai getting badly hurt, a guard from the Zichong office immediately stepped up to fight with the determination to take back Great Chu's honor. Mo Yao was taken to a back hall to wait for the emperor, but that place was actually a trap set to take his life. As soon as the assassins appeared, Mo Yao stood up right away and took down every single one of them with decisive moves, not giving them any chance to fight back. Meanwhile, at the fighting stage, General Lei won again. Seeing that Mo Yao had been gone for too long and hadn't he come back yet, Yi Li started to worry. General Lei commented that the people of Great Chu lacked spirit in their fights and weren't aggressive enough, so he suggested to the princess to give 200 northern warhorses as a prize for the winner. The princess agreed immediately. Not stopping there, he even asked the Empress Dowager to give him the Lanyun spear of Prince Ding's mansion to comfort his father's soul. Since Mo Yao wasn't there, he boldly asked Yi Li to decide for him, saying it was just an old spear anyway. Yi Li calmly stood up and answered. She pointed out that the Lanyun spear was a treasure given by the late emperor, with the words loyalty and bravery carved on it, symbolizing the unmatched loyalty and bravery of Prince Ding's mansion. General Lei was brave, but he had changed masters many times, so a man who served 4 generations of masters like him was totally unworthy of the word loyalty. His shame being called out, General Lei got angry and was about to rush over and attack Yi Li. Right at that moment, Mo Yao showed up to stop him. His appearance shocked everyone because his once crippled legs could now stand firm and walk normally. Right after that, Mo Yao and General Lei stepped onto the stage, recreating the fierce duel that happened on the bloody battlefield years ago. The fight was very tense and intense, but the result was the same as back then. General Lei lost again to Mo Yao's spear. The emperor and the officials were very excited to see the northern general defeated fair and square. Only Lord Muyang looked very upset. The princess also frankly admitted defeat and immediately gave Great Chu 200 warhorses as promised. Mo Yao went forward to explain to the Empress Dowager that he didn't mean to hide his recovery, but because his muscles and bones had just healed, they weren't completely stable yet. Right after that, he immediately reported a serious matter, making Lord Muyang's face change instantly. Soldiers quickly blocked the area and brought Zhang Yuan to the front of the hall. Zhang Yuan was shaking nonstop and kept claiming he was innocent, insisting he didn't dare to collaborate with the North. But the Empress Dowager immediately ordered him to be taken for questioning. Lord Muyang wanted to take over the investigation, but the Empress Dowager decided to give the whole thing to the Jingzhou office to handle, which made him break into a cold sweat. Right then, Lord Hua also arrived. He said the people who attacked Mo Yao were all court eunuchs, and even the eunuch who led Prince Ding had been silenced. Mo Yao added that the secret letter from the North clearly stated the order for Zhang Yuan to assassinate Hang Tong. This man is a genius in mechanics, and is currently researching a repeating crossbow with huge power. Hearing that, Lord Hua immediately understood that the North was worried about this threat, so they tried to get rid of him early. Knowing everyone suspected him, Lord Muyang quickly denied being involved, and even argued that no matter how brave Zhang Yuan was, he didn't have the ability to assassinate a prince or plot a rebellion. After that, Lord Hua was happy to see with his own eyes that Mo Yao had fully recovered. He told him to rest carefully and not push himself too hard. Right then, Yi Li walked over to greet him. Lord Hua looked at her with a lot of emotion, not expecting the girl from years ago to have grown up with a manner and spirit just like her grandfather. Yi Li thanked him and said her grandfather and senior brothers were still doing well, living freely at Mount Li. Hearing that, Lord Hua felt more at ease and said goodbye to leave. Mo Yao turned to Yi Li and said he had to stay to interrogate Zhang Yuan, so he told her to go back to the mansion first. Once everything was done, he would definitely return to accept whatever punishment the princess had for him. Yi Li just nodded slightly in agreement. In another place, the Empress Dowager showed all the letters sent between Shangbei and Zhang Yuan to the princess. After reading them, the princess stated she had absolutely nothing to do with it and promised to investigate clearly and strictly punish the guilty ones. The Empress Dowager believed her and casually asked if there was any man in Great Chu who had caught the Princess Si yet. The princess didn't hide it and frankly admitted that she had fallen in love with someone in Great Chu, and that person was an old friend she had known for many years. At the Yinchaoan, General Lei reported to the princess that about a year ago, many weapons made by Great Chu were found among Shangbei's military equipment. In Great Chu, there was a craftsman named Hang Tong who invented a new metalworking method, making weapons much sharper than before. Suspecting a spy was leaking military equipment, the Great Chu court sent Yuan Fang to Huaishi to investigate. As soon as he arrived, Yuan Fang discovered that someone was overstating military supplies. When he was about to look deeper into it, he suddenly lost his life, and then Great Chu sent Gong Shuyang to investigate the matter. Hearing this, the princess immediately understood that everything happening was targeting their power and could even break the peace talks between the two countries. She couldn't help but blame General Lei for acting too impulsively, constantly provoking the other side, and even planning to move against Princess Ding, which made relations between the two countries more tense. Finally, she sternly warned him that if he dared to ruin her plans again, she would absolutely show no mercy. Right then, the princess noticed someone outside and immediately stepped out to check. It turned out to be Sui Dai, who came to discuss the schedule for the next day. Because she dared to approach carelessly while the princess was discussing secrets, Sui Dai was punished by having to kneel for 2 hours. A little while later, Lin Lan and Mo Yao arrived at the inn. Seeing Sui Dai still kneeling in the yard, they both were a bit surprised. The princess then suggested she wanted to meet Master Jiha to fulfill the wishes of the people from both countries. Mo Yao agreed and set a time for the next morning to personally pick her up to meet the master. When Mo Yao left the inn, he casually told Sui Dai that the princess was no longer holding a grudge, so she didn't need to keep kneeling. Just as he stepped outside, he saw Yili coming to pick him up. A happy smile immediately appeared on his face. Right then, Sui Dai hurriedly ran over and asked Mo Yao if he recognized her. She chokingly said that her mother died of a serious illness, and her older sister couldn't stand the miserable life of wandering and hanged herself. Luckily, she met the princess later, so she was able to live until today. When she asked about Mo Yao's legs, he proudly answered that the princess was the one who healed him. After that, Mo Yao and Yili went back to the mansion. That night, for some unknown reason, Sui Dai looked pale. She wandered the streets alone and fainted in the middle of the road. Luckily, Wu Ran happened to pass by and immediately took her back to the mansion for treatment. After waking up and seeing Wu Ran in front of her, Sui Dai was so moved that she couldn't stop crying. Wu Ran then found Yili and explained that Sui Dai was an old acquaintance. The family's downfall caused her much suffering, and today she was bullied again, which was why she ended up wandering like that. Wu Ran wanted to keep her at the mansion for a few days to recover and asked for Yili's opinion. Hearing that, Yili agreed. Knowing Yili was quietly paying attention to this, Mo Yao took the lead to explain that Sui Dai was the daughter of an official from the Eastern Palace back then. When they were little, the two families had a marriage arrangement, but after the Eastern Palace event, her whole clan was exiled. His sister-in-law's mother's family had a long-term friendship with the Sui mansion, so seeing Sui Dai, they couldn't just stand by and do nothing. After listening, Yili just calmly told Mo Yao to bring the bowl of sugar water she prepared to Sui Dai. The next morning, Li Bai found his way back to Mount Li Academy. But when he stepped foot there, he was completely stunned by the empty, ruined scene with not a soul in sight. Meanwhile, while Ying was cleaning Mo Li's room, she accidentally found letters sent between him and Yili years ago. A feeling of jealousy immediately rose in her heart, making her unable to stay calm. Also that same morning, when Yili went to Shendexian, she saw Han still shamelessly staying there and refusing to leave. That sight left her helpless and speechless. Ying ordered someone to bring the old letters between herself and Mo Li to Yili. Meanwhile, at the mansion, Sui Dai came out to talk with Mo Yao. When she praised Yi Li as a dignified and careful person, Mo Yao could only hold back a laugh because nobody knew Yi Li's playfulness better than him. Then he asked if her leaving the inn like that would have any effect on the princess's side. Sui Dai answered that she had already asked Wu Ran to help pass the news. After saying that, she couldn't hold back her tears and asked for permission to leave. Meanwhile, Lord Muyang was afraid Zhang Yuan wouldn't be able to stand the questioning and would reveal everything. So he secretly ordered Qin Song to sneak into the Jingzhou office prison to kill him and shut him up. He promised that after everything settled down, he would formally bring him back to the capital as the Marquis Mansion as adopted son. Qin Song believed him and took the mission, but in reality, Lord Muyang secretly ordered Zhao Ding that if there was any slip-up, he had to kill Qin Song too. Hearing this, Zhou Yang immediately ran in to confront him because Qin Song was also his son. But Lord Muyang coldly claimed that his only son was Zhou Yang. That night, Qin Song sneaked into the Jingzhou office and set a haystack on fire to distract everyone, then took the chance to break into the prison and kill Zhang Yuan on the spot. As he ran outside, soldiers had already surrounded the place. Even though he was badly hurt, he risked his life to break through the circle and escape. Right then, Zhao Ding showed up. Knowing Zhang Yuan was dead, he immediately prepared to finish off Qin Song. Zhou Yang rushed over to warn him, but he was a step too late. He wanted to jump in and save him but was knocked out and dragged away. After murdering Qin Song, Zhao Ding fled right away. When Wang Wu ran to the scene, he only found Qin Song in critical condition. The next morning, when the Empress Dowager found out that Lord Muyang had used his own biological son as a sacrifice to silence Zhang Yuan, she was shocked by his madness. But Lord Muyang still insisted that everything he did was for the Empress Dowager and the country. He revealed that Qin Song was actually a Zhou named Zhou Lang. Since his birth mother was the daughter of an official from the Eastern Palace, that identity had been hidden all these years. He claimed he admired the Empress Dowager and believed she was a wise ruler, which is why he married Madame Kong and served her faithfully. Hearing those words, the Empress Dowager got extremely angry. She questioned that if he really loved this child, Why would he let him do such shameful things, and even order him to kill someone to shut them up? To her, that was the peak of stupidity. Even though Lord Muyang kept making excuses that his bloody hands were all for the Empress Dowager and Great Chu, she bluntly called him out. She said that from the start, he didn't help because of loyalty, but because he saw a profit, and there was no need to keep acting anymore. Meanwhile, Yi Li was at Shendexian when she heard that Yu Sheng was in trouble, so she immediately ran to handle it. Back at the mansion, Mo Yao accidentally saw the old letters Yi Li had sent to Mo Li, and he couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. After taking care of Yu Sheng and putting medicine on her, Yi Li felt relieved and went back home. As soon as he saw her, Mo Yao immediately asked where she had been. Yi Li said casually that she just went to a brothel to get into a fight. That answer made Mo Yao really mad. He couldn't understand why she always showed up in places he didn't know about or did things he couldn't guess. He also told her that he had waited at home for a long time, worried sick, but it felt like she never thought about his feelings or took their marriage seriously. Hearing that, Yi Li softly said she really did care. She believed she understood him and he understood her. Also, he already knew her feelings for him didn't just appear recently. She promised not to be so reckless anymore and hoped he wouldn't stay mad. Then, Yi Li initiated a hug with Mo Yao, and all the anger in his heart disappeared instantly. That night, Yi Li suddenly woke up from a nightmare. Seeing her panicking, Mo Yao immediately held her to calm her down, promising that no matter what happened in the future, he would never leave her. They would live and die together, sharing both good and bad times. Those words touched Yi Li, and she smiled and gave him a kiss. After that, the high of them officially became a real husband and wife, giving each other all their love and trust. The next morning, Yi Li went to Shendexian very early because she was shy. As soon as Mo Yao woke up, he went to find her. Taking that chance, Yi Li curiously asked, "There were many people there the first day we met. So why did you only carry me onto your horse? Did you like me even back then?" Hearing that question, Mo Yao just smiled and remembered the image of that girl years ago with a dirty face and tears and snot all over. Just as Senior Wei opened the shop, Yi Li walked in to get a wind chime she had ordered before, then went back to the mansion with Mo Yao. Meanwhile, Sui Dai was being sneaky and asked Wu Ran about the relationship between Mo Yao and Yi Li. She purposely mentioned that they got married without ever meeting and thought that since Mo Yao was cold and hard to open up, living together must not be easy. Wu Ran just smiled and said they got along very well. Hearing that, Sui Dai's expression changed immediately. Back at the mansion, after Yi Li finished hanging the wind chime, Mo Yao picked her up and set her down. He gently kissed her and said he saw the letter box on her dressing table but didn't dare open it because it was private. Hearing that, Yi Li comfortably showed it to him. Mo Yao thought they were love letters, but inside were just music scores she had once sent to Mo Li. On that note, Yi Li told him what she found about the secret tunnel in Mo Li's study. That tunnel went through Dehua Ward, Tiyun Ward, and then straight to the river in the outskirts. She believed Mo Li wasn't dead yet. Mo Yao nodded in agreement. From what he investigated, he found that after the incident, Mo Li had quietly set up power everywhere. There were many spies in the 6 ministries of the court, and he even had a connection with the Tiani Guild. Someone like that absolutely wouldn't commit suicide so easily. Just as the two were hugging and playing around, Sui Dai passed by and saw it with her own eyes. She was stunned because she had always thought Mo Yao and Yi Li were just husband and wife in name only. She didn't expect their feelings to be so deep. Afterward, Sui Dai thanked Wu Ran for saving her life and thanked Mo Yao for taking her in, but she absolutely did not mention Yi Li. When the jewelry was brought out, she purposely brought up the past. She said that years ago, Mo Yao's mother knew she liked butterflies, so she specially carved a butterfly for her. She also purposely mentioned her wish to be with her parents in the afterlife and read a poem full of hidden meanings, expressing her regret that the disaster back then stopped her from becoming his princess. But Mo Yao didn't care at all. He just quietly held Yi Li's hand. Right then, a Jean came to report that there was urgent business at the government office. Mo Yao was worried about Yi Li and didn't want to leave, but she kept reminding him that official business is more important, forcing him to head out. After Mo Yao left, Yi Li bluntly exposed the truth. Sui Dai's relatives were all rich, and her family wealth was plenty. She wasn't a lonely person with nowhere to go like she pretended to be. If she wanted an easy life, she didn't have to serve anyone. Hearing Sui Dai keep making excuses that the princess had been kind to her, Yi Li just politely sent her away. Before leaving, she told Wu Ran that if Sui Dai really had another goal, even her sister-in-law wouldn't be able to help her. On the way back to the inn, Sui Dai suddenly ran into the drunk man who had bothered her the night before. Without any hesitation, she coldly killed him right there, showing her cruel and calculating nature. In another place, Zhou Yang locked himself in his room, not eating or drinking. When he saw Lord Muyang walk in, he immediately asked about Qin Song. Lord Muyang coldly told him not to mention that person anymore and ordered Zhou Yang to go back to Lingnan with his mother, where his favorite pomelo gardens were. Hearing this, Zhou Yang asked painfully. Qin Song was his son too, and his father and mother were childhood friends. He used to think his father valued that half-brother. If one day he got in his father's way, would his father kill him too? That question made Lord Muyang angry. He immediately slapped Zhou Yang and ordered him to pack his bags and leave. Right after that, Lord Muyang went to Qin Song's room. He was very surprised to see that Qin Song used coconut shells to grow plants. By evening, Fang Jiao had rented out the entire Xianqi pavilion, so Ling Yun could fully enjoy the singing and dancing. During their talk, Ling Yun asked out of curiosity why he still wasn't married. Fang Jiao frankly admitted that he had loved someone for a long time, but the other person was always hiding something, so he still couldn't take the next step. Hearing that, Ling Yun thought that maybe once he knew that secret, his mind would change. But Fang Jiao was very sure that no matter what the truth was, his feelings wouldn't change. After that, he called Mo Yao over to drink and vent. As soon as they met, Fang Jiao kept complaining about Ling Yun. He remembered the first time he met her 2 years ago. Back then she was skinny and dark, and she was disguised as a man, so he didn't recognize her real identity at all. He didn't expect that in this reunion she would be so beautiful, but she still used a male identity to meet him. What bothered him most was not knowing for sure if Ling Yun had feelings for him. Mo Yao thought it was something serious, but he only had to sit and listen to Fang Jiao's romantic talk. He immediately advised that if he liked her, he should speak up soon, then stood up and left. The next morning, Yili went to find Master Zhong, asking him to teach her how to accurately calculate the time and scope of observing astronomical phenomena in the capital. After making sure everything was ready, she went to find third uncle and asked how to get Consort Qin out of the palace. When she saw the gossip book that the consort would bring to the palace for the Empress Dowager the next day, Yili immediately told third uncle to give that book to the consort exactly at noon. At Shendexian, Han Shi cleaned the shop until it was neat and tidy all by himself. As soon as he saw Yili, he excitedly showed off his work and even proactively asked her to eat with him. But Yili wasn't interested and immediately made an excuse to leave. Right then, Li Bai returned. Seeing many wounds on her senior brother, Yili couldn't help but worry. But Li Bai just tried to hide his emotions, lying that he met some bad guys on the road, and that's how he got hurt. He also said he saw teacher Zhou return to the mountain. Hearing that news, Yili finally felt at ease. Before leaving, Li Bai seriously told her that no matter what happened later, she must remember that her senior brother was always by her side. He would always be her support, and wouldn't let her be alone. Yili just nodded slightly in agreement. While sitting and waiting for the carriage, Han she curiously asked who the man she just met was and teased her, asking if she wasn't afraid her husband would get jealous going out with another man like that. Yili immediately hit back, saying that if he kept staying in the shop and wouldn't leave, she would tell her husband on him. But Han she acted really casual, insisting that he loved working here and absolutely had no intention of leaving. That evening, while watching the moon with Tu Yao, Yili suddenly said she dared to bet that the sun would disappear at noon tomorrow. The next morning, she sat upstairs and waited quietly. Just as Consort Qin's carriage appeared, the sky began to turn dark. The sun was hidden, a strong wind blew wildly, and the whole scene became very strange. Seeing Consort Qin's carriage lose its way in the chaos, Yili immediately shot a stone at the horse's head. The panicked horse dashed forward, snapping the harness and throwing Consort Qin out of the carriage. Right then, Yili walked over carrying a lantern, and in just a moment, the sky brightened up as if nothing had happened. Consort Qin looked at what happened, and then at the lantern in Yili's hand in broad daylight, immediately understanding that this couldn't be just a coincidence. However, Yili calmly explained that Mount Li Academy had recorded history and astronomical events for thousands of years. If you read enough, you will realize that with enough time, even the weirdest coincidences can definitely happen. That night, when Tu Yao finished his work and returned to the mansion, Yili immediately pulled him to the yard to grill meat with her. While preparing food and chatting, Tu Yao said he had to leave the capital tomorrow because he had saved Qin Song, and the man had shared some very useful news. Hearing that, Yili couldn't help but worry, constantly telling him to be extremely careful, not to start fights with others, and not to act rashly. Tu Yao just smiled and nodded his head. Seeing him staring at her, Yili blurted out asking if she was prettier than Sui Dai. Tu Yao chuckled, saying that in many people's eyes, Sui Dai was indeed very beautiful, but in his heart, no woman could ever compare to Yili. That answer made Yili both happy and laugh, saying that he was definitely a smooth talker. The next morning, Consort Qin went to the hall to wait for the Empress Dowager. While accidentally looking around, she found the gossip book thrown in the trash can. After finishing her talk with the Empress Dowager came over but couldn't find Consort Qin anywhere. She asked and found out that the lady had quietly left earlier. Seeing the book left on the table, the Empress Dowager understood the reason immediately. At the same time, at the Qingfeng Pavilion, Fang Jiao was busy packing his bags to go camping on the mountain with Ling Yun the next day. On the other side, Ling Yun also finished getting ready to meet him. Seeing Sui Dai had returned, she casually reminded her to stay in her place a bit more. In the great prison, Gu Jing told Mo Yao that Qin Song's injuries were very severe, and that keeping him alive was considered lucky. Hearing that, Mo Yao felt at ease leaving the capital. On this side, Yishun took Yili to meet Consort Qin. She purposely brought up the old story about Han Kuan passing through the Southland. During a severe drought, he used a brush to draw a dragon to pray for rain and save the people. Then she said she also knew Han Kuan's trick of using a magic brush to control the wind and rain. Those words immediately sparked Consort Qin's curiosity. She wanted to see for herself if it was true. Seeing that the time had come as the wind began to pick up, Yili used special ink to draw a dragon. After finishing, she took out a box containing gold powder. Consort Qin was very shocked because years ago, Han Kuan had also used this kind of powder to decorate the dragon. When the gold powder was sprinkled on, the dragon on the paper seemed to disappear. Just then, it also started to rain. Witnessing the whole process, Consort Qin was so terrified that her breathing became heavy. She finally understood that Han Kuan was just someone who used astronomical events to trick people. In her head, Yi Li's words kept echoing that everything in the world has its own rules. Just find those rules and follow them, and something that seems a world away can appear right before your eyes. Yi Shin was very angry, not understanding why Yi Li insisted on exposing Han Kuan as just a street magician who tricked people. In response, Yi Li said that ever since Consort Qin entered the palace, she had always been absolutely loyal to the Empress Dowager. Everything behind the scenes was manipulated by Han Kuan, and now she was the only one who could help Consort Qin wake up to the truth. Hearing that, Yi Shen could only sigh. He said that sometimes being too smart isn't a good thing, and then asked if she had ever thought about how Mo Yao would look at her if one day he found out the truth about the secret decree. He advised her to forget all the old stories and just live happily with Mo Yao. But Yi Li remained firm. She reminded him that she had promised General Mo Wen and also her mother that she must reopen the old case of Prince Ding's mansion. On the mountain, the sudden rain made Fang Jiao very disappointed. All the plans prepared beforehand were ruined. Even so, he still gave the meat skewer he just grilled to Ling Yun to taste. Finding the taste very delicious, she asked if it was because of those hungry and miserable days at the northern border years ago that he worked so hard to learn how to cook like that. Fang Jiao remembered the words of a friend years ago that just having a small shop enough to get by, a happy couple, and a peaceful family was already the best life. He felt that those words made a lot of sense. Taking that chance, he asked Ling Yun if she knew any suitable woman to introduce to him. Ling Yun immediately made up a story about a younger sister who looked and acted very much like her, but was once forced to marry an old man for family interests, almost lost her life, and then escaped. After hearing this, Fang Jiao understood her situation right away. He sincerely said that he didn't care about that person as past at all. Those words made Ling Yun very moved. Finally, she made an appointment to meet him 7 days later between 3 and 5 p.m. Hearing that, Fang Jiao was overjoyed. He even rushed out into the rain like a child. Because finally, Ling Yun was willing to meet him as her true female self. Meanwhile, at the inn, while cleaning Ling Yun's dressing table, Sui Dai accidentally found a secret token. Right after that, she quietly went to the Guangyuan grocery store to meet Han Yu. Han Yu looked very jealous, knowing that lately Sui Dai had been living in Prince Ding's mansion and had the chance to see her old flame every day. Sui Dai immediately replied that Tu Yao was her enemy. Hearing that, Han Yu revealed the next plan, which was to stir up trouble between Great Chu and Shangbei. At the same time, Consort Qin went to see the Empress Dowager. She told her that her life had been close to death many times, from catching a disease and being ignored by the queen in the cold palace to the most desperate days. At that time, Master Han Kuan appeared to save her. Later, after meeting the Empress Dowager, she was no longer afraid of any danger. She also mentioned Han Kuan's old prophecy that as long as she stayed by the Empress Dowager, she would be safe and enjoy all the wealth and honor. During the talk, Consort Qin accidentally learned that the Empress Dowager's childhood name was Fu Rong. Leaving there, she stood silently outside, with tears falling nonstop. Han Kuan's words from years ago now flashed in her head one by one. He once said that the Empress Dowager had sent Lord Muyang to threaten the Yi mansion and find any way to get the secret decree. Once it was obtained, it had to be hidden very carefully, because at a critical moment, it would become the only life-saving charm. At this very moment, Consort Qin finally understood the full meaning of what Han Kuan said back then. Returning to her palace, she couldn't stop sobbing because she realized she had been lied to for all these years. Right then, Zhou Yang also came to see her with a heavy heart because of Qin Song's death. In her pain, Consort Qin bitterly admitted that years ago, when her father sent her to the palace in exchange for benefits in the southwest, he never really saw her as his daughter. The thing that kept her going in this cold, lonely palace all these years turned out to be just a lie. The more she thought about it, the more bitter she felt, and she kept drinking wine to numb the pain in her heart. The next morning, Consort Qin took the lead to meet Yi Li to ask about her goal. Yi Li calmly analyzed that years ago, Han Kuan became famous all over Lingnan for his talent in drawing dragons to pray for rain. If he just wanted to be famous, he could have picked the busy capital, but he showed up in Lingnan. The only reason was because of Consort Qin. Next, Yi Li mentioned Yi Hua, the man who rose quickly in his career by leaning on Lord Muyang. At first, she always thought the person who forced the Yi family to hand over the secret decree was Lord Muyang, but in the end, that decree fell into Consort Qin's hands. Facing that question, Consort Qin admitted that she got the decree from Yi Hua back then and personally gave it to the Empress Dowager. Hearing this, Yi Li continued to question her, noting that Han Kuan was caught in the Eastern Palace case and went to prison. Consort Qin was the last person to see him after asking third uncle to leave. She believed that at that time, Han Kuan advised her to keep the decree, and that was the final advice from one discarded chess piece to another. Mentioning her mother, Yi Li's voice couldn't hide the pain. Her mother had become a sacrifice in someone else's game and was still labeled as disloyal even in death. Would the tens of thousands of souls of the Black Cloud Guard stay buried in the dark forever without ever being cleared? She earnestly begged Consort Qin to hand over the decree to finish her mother's unfinished wish. Actually, after getting the decree from Yihua years ago, Consort Qin had immediately given it to Lord Muyang to burn it himself. But what nobody knew was that the decree he burned was a fake. Meanwhile, Zhou Yang had been tied up by Lord Muyang's men, getting ready to be sent to his mother's hometown, even though he kept struggling and demanding his freedom. Right then, Shanxi appeared, delivering the Empress Dowager's message, summoning him to the palace for a meeting. At the inn, the princess received Yi Li's invitation, asking her to come to Qingfeng Pavilion for a party the next day. After the princess agreed, General Lei immediately went to prepare the carriage for tomorrow's trip. In another place deep in the forest, Tu Yao and his men were surrounding and chasing Qin Xiang, a very important close follower of Lord Muyang. After a fierce fight, the entire group was brought under control. When everything was settled, Wang Wu looked at Tu Yao and slowly spoke about the feelings he had held inside for many years, saying that the war back then had taken his entire family. During the time he worked alongside Tu Yao, he understood very well that Tu Yao was a good person, and he also knew that the tragedy that year wasn't entirely his fault. However, there was still a pain in his heart that could not be healed. He didn't know whether he should hate the wolves from the north or blame heaven for being unfair. From the day he set foot in the capital 8 years ago, the only thought in his head was to get revenge for his family members who died on the battlefield. But the more things he witnessed, the more he understood that if war broke out again, countless innocent people would lose their lives. Right then, Qin Xiang was brought before them, and Tu Yao coldly reminded him of his crimes from years ago. Back then, he had murdered someone's wife and family, and should have been sentenced to be beheaded. However, Lord Muyang used a trick to help him fake his death and change his identity, so he could keep living freely outside the law. Yili was about to head to Qingfeng Pavilion when Hanxi found her. Yili told him to get back to the shop, warning him that if he kept wandering around, it would count as missing work. But as soon as he heard she was going to Qingfeng Pavilion, Hanxi insisted on following her no matter what. When the two of them arrived, Princess Ling Yin saw that Feng Jiao had prepared many Jinlin plants for her to take back to Shangbei, and she couldn't hide her happy smile. When she heard the waiter say those plants were treasures that Feng Jiao cherished very much, she felt even happier. Just as Yi Li was about to enter Qingfeng Pavilion, Consort Qin's people brought her the first 4 volumes of Han Kuen's journal. Opening the book box, she found a locked secret compartment. Once she got it open, she saw the late emperor's imperial decree, which made Yi Li very emotional. Going inside, she learned from the waiter that Feng Jiao hadn't shown up at all for the last few days. When she and Hanxi went upstairs, Sui Dai saw Hanxi and immediately hid in a panic, as if she were afraid of being recognized. Right after that, while serving tea, Sui Dai secretly put drugs into the cups of Yi Li and the princess. Not long after, both of them felt dizzy, and their bodies were too weak to stand. Taking advantage of the moment, Sui Dai killed the princess and faked the crime scene, making all the evidence look like Yi Li was the killer. The news of Yi Li murdering Princess Ling Yin quickly shocked the entire court. Shangbei immediately put on the pressure, demanding that Great Chu execute the killer within 3 days, or the two countries would officially go to war. Lord Muyang took the chance to convict Yi Li right away, but Lord Hua stood up to object, saying that Princess Ding still hasn't confessed, so they couldn't rush the verdict. Furthermore, Shangbei had likely heard the news and could attack at any moment. So, the most urgent thing right now was to prepare for war, not to rush a conviction. After that, Lord Hua met with Wei Zhuang and bluntly told him that if they didn't find the real killer in 3 days, Yi Li would definitely become a target for everyone. Wei Zhuang begged him to respect the headmaster's integrity and stand up for what's right to help clear Yi Li's name. Lord Hua could only sigh and say that both the emperor and the empress dowager needed an answer strong enough to calm Shangbei's anger and explain things to the whole court. Even so, he promised to do his best to protect Yi Li, but whether she could survive this disaster still depended on her own luck. It turned out that before she completely passed out, Yi Li managed to see Sui Dai kill the princess. Hanxi also told her that Sui Dai was definitely not a good person. Before this, she had enchanted his older brother, making him do many wrong things and lose his conscience and true nature. Hanxi told Yi Li that his real identity was a member of the Tiani Guild. He also clearly stated that after Yi Li fell off the cliff years ago, he was kidnapped and held in the southwest outskirts of the capital. The person behind everything was always called His Highness. Hearing that, Yi Li immediately suspected the one behind it all was Mo Li, who was secretly pulling the strings to push Great Chu and Shangbei into war. At her most confused moment, Qing Chang appeared again to talk to Yi Li. That scene made Hanxi look on in a daze, completely not understanding if she was talking to a real person or just an image that he couldn't see. In another place, Tu Yao caught a messenger from Shangbei. He was shocked to learn that Princess Ling Yun had been murdered. To avoid being questioned further, the messenger immediately bit down on poison and killed himself. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Tu Yao immediately ordered Wang Wu to lead men to Yen Mountain to strictly guard the passes and stop any news from crossing the border. At the same time, a Jin was given the task of notifying spies at the border to coordinate support, while he himself immediately headed back to the capital. In the prison, Han Chi planned to take all the blame on himself. He thought if his big brother knew, he would definitely tie up Sui Dai to trade for his life. And if ignored, he would tell on her to their parents in the afterlife. Yili heard that and just told him to stop being crazy. The important thing right now was to find Sui Dai. Right after that, Yili suddenly spat blood and told the minister that she was hit by a rare poison called Chun Wu Hong and needed to find Gu Zheng immediately to be treated. Over here, Li Bai was also trying to meet Gu Zheng to ask to visit Yili but had no way. Just then, Gu Zheng got the news that Yili was vomiting black blood and claimed to be poisoned by Chun Wu Hong. Understanding her plan right away, he immediately went to the prison. There, Yili secretly told Gu Zheng to send people to keep a close eye on everything Sui Dai did at the Shangbei Inn. Meanwhile, Sui Dai went to meet Lord Muyang and revealed she was the daughter of the man he killed 8 years ago. As soon as he knew she was from the old Eastern Palace group, Lord Muyang immediately understood that Princess Ling Yun was murdered by her. He asked for her real purpose, and Sui Dai calmly mentioned that Chen Xiang had gone missing. For all these years, he had faked his death to secretly work for Lord Muyang and had many times moved military equipment to Shangbei. If he fell into Tu Yao's hands, countless secrets would be exposed. But now that the princess was dead, all the evidence pointed straight at Prince Ding's mansion. As long as the whole Prince Ding mansion was dragged down, nobody would have time to investigate Chen Xiang or question Lord Muyang. Hearing those words, even Lord Muyang was shocked by her evilness. Over here, Consort Qin went to see the Empress Dowager, insisting that Yili wasn't stupid enough to do such a thing, and hoping the Empress Dowager would think it over carefully. After that, she asked to leave the palace to take care of her father. The Empress Dowager agreed to let her go back home. She left the palace full of fights, plots, and lies. Consort Qin felt like a burden had been lifted. Shunned, she ran after her to give her an orchid pot gifted by the Empress Dowager and asked when she would return. She just said softly that when a new ruler appears, new flowers will naturally bloom. Before leaving, Consort Qin also went to see Yi Shun and told him to burn all the works left by Han Kun. That was also her way of completely breaking away from the past that had lied to her for so many years. Lord Muyang realized Consort Qin had left, and the Empress Dowager would definitely wait for the right time to deal with him. Zhao Ding immediately suggested turning the case of Yi Li killing the princess into a rock-solid case, blaming Prince Ding's mansion for treason. Meanwhile, Gu Zheng ordered soldiers to track down Sui Dai. He also told Li Bai that Yi Li was completely fine. Spitting out blood was just her hurting herself, so she would have a chance to see him. At the hideout, Han Yu blamed Sui Dai, saying the master never ordered her to harm Yi Li because there are some people you absolutely cannot touch. But Sui Dai didn't care. She just thought Lord Muyang would find a way to make Yi Li confess, and Han Yu's younger brother wouldn't be in danger either. That same night, Zhao Ding killed 2 guards and sneaked into the prison to silence Yi Li. She tried to fight back, and Han Chi immediately rushed in to grab his neck, constantly telling Yi Li to hit him. But she just said helplessly that she didn't know martial arts. Even so, both of them worked together to push him back. Realizing someone was coming, Zhao Ding immediately killed himself to hide the evidence. The minister quickly arrived and promised to bring justice to Yi Li, but she only said the most important thing right now was to find the real killer to avoid a big disaster for the court. Then, Yi Li was temporarily released to confront Sui Dai. In front of everyone, she exposed Sui Dai's identity as someone saved by the Eastern Palace leftovers and then secretly planted in Shangbei to start a war between the 2 countries. It was all Mo Li's orders. She also pointed out that Lord Muyang sending someone to the prison to assassinate her was actually related to the military weapons case in Huaishi. At this time, Sui Dai finally admitted the real reason she wanted to kill Yi Li. She hated Mo Yao because they were once engaged, but he didn't show up to help when she was exiled, causing her so much pain and shame. Just as Sui Dai finished confessing everything, the minister also led his men to appear, immediately surrounding and arresting her. The next morning, Lord Muyang told Zhou Yang that if there was a chance, he should ask the Empress Dowager to let him return to Lingnan because his mother was very sick. Zhou Yang just quietly nodded in agreement. At the court, the minister officially announced that Sui Dai was the mastermind who murdered Princess Ling Yun with the goal of starting a war between Great Chu and Shangbei. General Lei immediately stepped forward to apologize to the Empress Dowager and the Emperor for his impulsive actions before. The Empress Dowager declared that since Sui Dai was from Shangbei, she would give full authority to the Shangbei side to handle her. Great Chu would not get involved further, and General Lei also promised to report the entire incident to his king, without hiding even a single word. Right after that, Yi Li stood up to accuse Lord Muyang of sending Zhao Ding into the great prison to assassinate her to shut her up. The minister also immediately added that previously, Zhang Yuan, a close follower of Lord Muyang, had plotted to murder Hang Tong, and last night Zhao Ding continued to find a way to assassinate Princess Ding. 2 incidents happened in a row involving people related to Lord Muyang. This coincidence is really too hard to make anyone believe it was just a random chance. Lord Muyang immediately knelt to beg the Empress Dowager and the Emperor to strictly punish those who dared to make up lies to frame him. Just then, Mo Yao brought out the testimony of Chen Xiang, along with several secret letters between Lord Muyang and Shangbei. There were even account books recording the bribe gifts that Xiangbei had given him for the Empress Dowager and the Emperor to consider. Pushed into a corner, Lord Muyang hurriedly asked for a chance to prove his own innocence. The minister immediately stepped forward to ask to lead the case, not giving him any chance to turn the situation around. Right after that, Yili went forward to accuse that in the Black Cloud treason case years ago, Lord Muyang was the one in charge of the investigation and had created all the fake evidence, framing Black Cloud for starting a revolt on their own and driving loyal officials to their deaths. Seeing Lord Muyang still constantly denying it, Yili took out the late emperor's secret decree. In the decree, it clearly stated the order for Mo to leave Black Cloud to enter the capital immediately to protect the throne. Just that one sentence shocked the entire court. After looking it over, Lord Hua used his honor and life to guarantee that this was indeed the late emperor's handwriting in real decree. Mo Yao was so moved that his whole body shook. After 8 years of carrying a false name, he finally had the proof to clear the names of his older brother and the Black Cloud guards. After reading the decree, the emperor flew into a rage. Mo Yao immediately knelt down and begged the Empress Dowager and the Emperor to punish Lord Muyang to bring back justice for Mo Wen and the tens of thousands of souls of the Black Cloud guards who had fallen. All the officials also knelt together to ask to grant the request, making Lord Muyang so scared that his face turned white. When the Emperor officially agreed to the investigation and trial, he was completely stunned. Leaving the court, Mo Yao finally found out that, to have a chance to meet Gu Zheng, Yili had risked her life to swallow Han Xi's hairpin. Luckily, she finally managed to make herself throw it up, so he immediately took her back to the mansion to take good care of her. Right now, Yili felt extremely panicked. She was scared that if the truth came out, Mo Yao would have to suffer even more. Qing Chang also kept crying because she was worried that both of them would be kicked out. Even though she knew everything, Yili understood that the truth is the truth, and she had to face it no matter what the result was. Thinking of that, she could only hug Qing Chang and burst into tears. Over here, Fang Jiao held the flower pot that Ling Yun loved and went to their meeting spot. He waited for 3 days straight but still didn't see her show up because he had no idea she had passed away. Right then, seeing the group from Xiangbei taking the princess's coffin away, a bad feeling rose up in his heart, fearing that something bad had happened to Ling Yun. After returning from court, Mo Yao personally fed Yili her medicine and said, "The 3 judicial offices have joined the investigation, and Gong Shuyang has also returned to the capital. The Huaishi military weapons case has been dug up from the roots, and Lord Muyang will have a hard time escaping his crimes this time." Yili then said that she suspected Sui Dai's murder of Princess Ling Yun was related to Mo Li. Mo Yao just replied in a low voice that Mo Li wasn't the only one who wanted Great Chu to collapse, and for now, they could only adapt to the situation. Right at that moment, he saw the portrait of Princess Ling Yun that Yili had just painted. Hearing that Fang Jiao came looking for him, Mo Yao immediately went out to meet him. Fang Jiao said worriedly that the friend he was supposed to meet hadn't been seen for many days, and he couldn't find a single clue even after searching all the inns. Mo Yao then said that a few days ago, the capital was under very strict inspection, and every person from Xiangbei who entered the city had been registered. Aside from the official mission, there were only 5 other people. When he learned that the friend Fang Jiao mentioned was named Yun Ling, he suddenly realized that if you read it backward, it's Ling Yun. Immediately, Mo Yao brought the portrait of the princess that Yili painted to show him. With just one look, Fang Jiao was completely stunned. The person he missed night and day, the companion of the past 2 years, turned out to be Princess Ling Yun, who had passed away several days ago. Unable to believe the truth, Fang Jiao hugged the flower pot tightly and ran to the riverbank to say his last goodbye. But by then, the boats carrying the coffin had already gone far away, and he desperately ran after them but tripped, causing the whole flower pot to shatter on the ground. Watching the boat slowly disappear at the end of the river, Fang Jiao felt extreme pain, tears kept falling, and his heart felt like it was being squeezed bit by bit. Only now did he realize the person he loved most had left this world without even getting to say a single goodbye. Fang Jiao just sat there dazed at the pier like someone who had lost a soul. Even though Mo Yao stayed by his side to comfort him, he couldn't soothe the pain and loss tormenting his best friend's heart. Fang Jiao kept blaming himself for being so stupid and not planning everything perfectly for Ling Yun, which led to her tragic end. At the Qingtang station, Sui Dai was locked in a woodshed. Right then, Han Yu suddenly appeared. The next morning, Yili followed Mo Yao to go fishing. The 2 of them sat by the lake all day, and finally, Mo Yao caught one fish. That evening, he started a fire himself to grill the fish for her. When Yili felt her legs getting itchy and uncomfortable, he immediately knelt down to check. It was at that moment Yili noticed the first gray hairs appearing in Mo Yao's hair. The following morning, Li Bai went to see Yili and asked worriedly how she would face Prince Ding's mansion if her mother's story came out. Yili calmly replied that as long as she fulfilled her promise to Mo Wen, she would be satisfied. As for the future, she would choose the right time to tell Mo Yao everything. Besides, Mo Yao had promised that no matter what happened, he wouldn't leave her or let her face it all alone. After that, Li Bai went to Xiangqi Pavilion and found out Yu Shun had gone to West Huaju to travel with a lute player. Meanwhile, Hanshi returned to Tiani Guild and learned that Sui Dai had been rescued. Inside the main hall, Emily was furious that Sui Dai had acted on her own to harm Yili. When he was about to punish her, Han Yu stepped in to beg for mercy, saying Sui Dai knew a lot about the northern tribes' customs and was still useful, and she had done a lot for them over the years. Hearing that, Emily coldly drew his sword and stabbed Han Yu directly in the shoulder as a warning. Right then, Han Shi rushed in, full of rage. Han Yu quickly stopped his younger brother while taking the blame for Sui Dai and promising that something like this would never happen again. Emily looked at Han Shi and coldly reminded him not to think he could wash away the Han family identity. The freedom he had today was because his older brother had carried all the weight for him for years. Then Emily ordered Han Yu to take his brother away. If Han Shi tried to run away, Han Yu would have to pay with his life. After Emily left, Han Shi immediately wanted to kill Sui Dai to vent his anger. But Han Yu stopped him in time, letting Sui Dai escape safely. Han Shi told Han Yu that once Emily could officially show his face to the world, the first person he would silence would be him. As for Sui Dai, she had harmed Yi Li, so he would definitely kill her himself to get revenge. Over here, while sitting and watching the moon with Mo Yao, Yi Li suddenly remembered her days at Mount Li. She said the moon on the mountain was very big, and every night lying in the yard, it felt like being held by the moonlight. When it snowed, the moonlight blended with the snow, making it feel like walking on the clouds. Hearing that, Mo Yao smiled and promised that this winter, he would go back to Mount Li with her to watch the moon, being a perfect couple that everyone would admire. The next morning, at the Great Prison, because Qin Song proactively handed over evidence of Lord Muyang's crimes and helped the investigation, his punishment was lightened and he was spared from the death penalty. However, his property was still seized and he was exiled to Qianchuan. Shunshi came to the prison to ask Lord Muyang if he had any last words. The old man only hoped that Zhou Yang would be safe and sound. Right then, Qin Song walked by, making Lord Muyang extremely shocked because he didn't expect him to still be alive. When he found out that Qin Song was the one who handed over the evidence of his crimes, he didn't scold him but just stood there frozen. In the end, the person who caused his downfall was exactly the one he had raised. Qin Song said heartbreakingly that he always saw the old man as a father, but in the old man's eyes, he was never truly a son. For all these years, the old man kept ordering him to do all sorts of tasks under the name of being valued, but when things got dangerous, he sent people to kill him to silence him. He even asked if Zhou Yang was the one in danger. Would the old man have acted that way? After saying that, Qin Song knelt down and kowtowed to thank him for the grace of raising him. When he heard him call him father, Lord Muyang felt even more pain. Tears kept falling, and his heart was full of regret, but it was too late to save everything. As Qin Song was being escorted on his way, Zhou Yang secretly sent people to bring money and supplies to him. Moved, Qin Song asked the subordinate to pass a message. Zhou Yang, go to Lingnan to find your mother. Zhou Yang just stood quietly in the corner, watching his figure fade into the distance, and then smiled softly. Over at the Yi mansion, Ying went to see Yi Li and said she wanted to adopt a child from the clan as an heir under her and Mo Li's name to carry on the family line for Prince Li's mansion. Hearing this, Yi Li asked if she really wanted to spend her whole life in that empty mansion raising a child who wasn't her own blood. She advised that women today can absolutely do many things and live a much more brilliant life. Mo Li's identity was already a chain. If she adopted an heir, that child would also have to carry that same burden, eventually repeating the tragedy of those who came before. Those words made Ying rethink her decision. On the way to Qianchuan, Qin Song noticed there was always a carriage quietly following behind. When the guards brought food, he looked over at that carriage many times, but he didn't know who was inside. At night, when Qin Song fell asleep by the fire, Lin Lan stepped up quietly to cover him with a blanket and added more wood to keep him warm. Woke up the next morning and saw two pairs next to him. Qin Song immediately knew the person from yesterday was Lin Lan. He couldn't hold back his emotions, and tears quietly fell. Even though she decided to go to Qianchuan, Lin Lan would not help Qin Song anymore. She believed that if they were meant to be, they would definitely meet again in the future. Meanwhile, Yi Li and Tu Yao went to Qingfeng Pavilion to hear the tearful love story of Master Lu and Miss Meng. After getting married, Miss Meng was always hated by Madame Lu, who made things so difficult that she had to return to her parents' house. Before they parted ways, Master Lu promised that as soon as he settled everything, he would immediately pick her up. They both wiped their tears, made a vow, and said a lingering goodbye. Hearing this, Yi Li couldn't help but be moved. She asked Tu Yao if those two could finally be together. Tu Yao thought the hope was very slim because Master Lu's father died in forced labor years ago, and Miss Meng's older brother was the one in charge of overseeing that matter. Yi Li disagreed, saying that the brother is the brother and she is herself, so how could he mix everything up like that? At that time, Tu Yao looked at her and said that Lord Muyang had fallen and Prince Ding's mansion had been cleared. The two of them could now be together openly, so he hoped she would let Qing Chang return to her family. From now on, he would take Qing Chang's place to care for and love her. Hearing that, Yi Li could only nod her head and agree. In the great prison, the minister asked Lord Muyang to sign his confession, but the old man insisted on meeting Tu Yao. He declared that once he met Tu Yao, this case would end. Right at that moment, a Jin rushed over to report that Lord Muyang wanted to see Tu Yao. Hearing the news, Tu Yao immediately set out for the great prison. Looking at his back as he left, Yi Li suddenly felt a sense of unease rising in her heart. She was scared that Lord Muyang would reveal the old secret about her mother. Without thinking much, She immediately ran after Tu Yao's carriage. Seeing her chasing him in the middle of the road, Tu Yao quickly got out of the carriage, held an umbrella for her, and thought something terrible had happened. Unexpectedly, Yili only wanted to confirm that tomorrow he would go with her to hear the rest of the story about Master Lu and Miss Meng. After getting his agreement, she finally felt at ease returning to the mansion. As for Tu Yao, he continued on his way to the great prison, preparing to face his last meeting with Lord Muyang. Lord Muyang wanted to make a deal with Mo Yao. He hoped Mo Yao would protect Zhou Yang and keep him safe, because more than anyone, he understood what kind of person the Empress Dowager was. Then, he revealed the old secret that Mo Wen and the Black Cloud Guards were convicted of treason for leading troops into the capital without a summons, but in reality, they were acting on the late Emperor's secret decree. The hateful thing was that the secret decree was stolen by someone who tricked them. They hid it and just watched while Mo Wen was framed and beheaded, and while the Black Cloud Guards were scattered and suffered heavy losses. Lord Muyang said that as long as Mo Yao agreed to his condition, he would reveal the person behind everything. A little while later, she came to report to the Empress Dowager that Lord Muyang had confessed after meeting Mo Yao, while Zhou Yang was still kneeling outside the palace gate and refused to leave. Following instructions, she brought food to Zhou Yang and advised him to go home. Not long after, Zhou Yang finally got to see his father. Lord Muyang was shocked to see his son was still here and hadn't left for Lingnan yet. Zhou Yang naively said that the Empress Dowager had given them lots of delicious food and fine wine, and as long as his father confessed the whole truth, she would definitely forgive him because of their old bond. But Lord Muyang knew very well that this was his last meal. He immediately told Zhou Yang to go back to Lingnan and take good care of his mother. Zhou Yang burst into tears and said he had written a letter to Qin Zheng because the Empress Dowager always listened to her. If only Qin Zheng returned, she would definitely be able to save his father. When the visiting time ended, Zhou Yang kept insisting that he would definitely save his father, so that the family of three could live happily together again. Hearing those words, Lord Muyang was in so much pain that his tears wouldn't stop falling. After his son left, he sat quietly reflecting on his whole life. Finally, he picked up a bowl of poisoned wine and drank it all, so that the poison would quickly spread through his body and end his life right then and there. When she got the news that Lord Muyang was dead, the Empress Dowager just sighed softly. On this side, Yili was still sitting in a daze at the mansion waiting for Mo Yao to return. Seeing that it was already 12:15 a.m. and he still hadn't shown up, her heart grew more and more uneasy. Just then, Wu ran over emotionally and broke the news that Lord Muyang was dead. Finally, the great grudge was avenged, and everything was truly over. She hugged Yili tightly, crying and laughing with joy. But in contrast to that joy, the fear in Yili's heart only grew bigger. At the Jingzhou office, after learning the truth that Yili's mother was the one who took the secret decree years ago, Mo Yao was completely stunned. Gu Jing stepped up and said that Mo Yao had endured for 8 years and was the one who understood the bitterness and pain of that time best. From now on, he and everyone else could finally live for themselves. He also advised Mo Yao that it was very late, so he should head back home so the princess wouldn't worry so much. Gu Zheng innocently thought that Mo Yao and Yili would definitely have peaceful and happy days ahead. Seeing that the atmosphere was a bit strange, Ajin quickly interrupted and urged him to go home early. After Gu Zheng left, Mo Yao still sat motionless. Ever since he found out the truth, he felt as if he had fallen into a bottomless pit. He didn't know how to face Yili, and he didn't know how to deal with that truth either. Emotions that had been bottled up for too long finally exploded. Mo Yao suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted on the spot. When Ajin finished getting the carriage ready and came back in, he was terrified by what he saw. The doctor who was called in to check his pulse immediately called Ajin outside to talk privately. At that moment, Mo Yao woke up, and Lord Muyang's words from the prison kept flashing through his head. He had claimed that the person who took the secret decree, indirectly causing his older brother's tragic death and making Black Cloud and Prince Ding's mansion suffer under a false accusation for 8 years, was Yili's mother. At first, Mo Yao didn't believe it at all, thinking it was just lies before death, but Lord Muyang kept bringing up how Mo Wen trusted almost no one but Mountly Academy back then. He even saw Zi Zhou as the savior of his life, so being tricked into handing over the secret decree was totally possible. Not stopping there, Lord Muyang kept mocking Mo Yao. He said Yili had hidden the truth from him for a long time without him knowing, and Mo Yao had thought he had found true love. But all of it probably just came from her guilt and her wish to make up for it. In Lord Muyang's eyes, Yili's mother owed Prince Ding's mansion 1 life and owed Black Cloud 30,000 lives. Those cruel words were like knives stabbing straight into Mo Yao's heart, making him feel both pain and rage. Finally, Mo Yao squeezed his fist tight, his eyes bloodshot with anger, and coldly told Lord Muyang to just sit there and wait for death. Now Mo Yao was in extreme pain, and the words Yili said when she first came down the mountain kept appearing in his head. Back then, she only hoped to get back the shop her mother left, find her senior brothers, and help him stand up so he could live a happier and more peaceful life. Every single word was like a sharp blade cutting deep into his heart, making him completely break down. Tears kept falling, and his chest hurt so much that he couldn't stop coughing violently. Even though a major enemy had been taken out, Yili didn't feel happy at all. She stayed awake all night waiting for Mo Yao to come back, but he never showed up. The unease in her heart grew. She was almost certain that Mo Yao had found out the truth from the past. Right then, seeing a Jean rushing back to the mansion to get some things, Yili immediately ran over to ask when Mo Yao would return. But a Jean only replied that whenever the prince wanted to come back, he would come back on his own, and then he left quickly. Just that one sentence was enough for Yi Li to know that things were not okay anymore. She quietly remembered Mo Yao's previous promises that no matter what happened, he would always be by her side. But now she doesn't know if those promises can still be kept. In the following days, Yi Li just sat alone in a daze waiting, longing for the sight of the man she loved. Meanwhile, Tu Yao was still at the Jingzhou office, sitting quietly in a dark corner, constantly torn between love and the deep blood feud of his family. Not long after, the emperor issued a decree announcing Lord Muyang's crimes. His suicide out of fear was seen as him getting what he deserved. However, because his ancestors had served the court well, his unrelated family members were spared. All the property he got from his wrongdoings was seized, all his titles were stripped away, his family was demoted to commoners, and they were forever banned from being officials. At the same time, Black Cloud's honor was fully restored, and Mo Wen's rank was returned to honor his loyal spirit. While Tu Yao was still struggling to handle the official work, the butler came to report that Wu Ran wanted to visit the graves and asked if he wanted to go along. Tu Yao agreed. From the butler's words, he also learned that through all those days, Yi Li hadn't been eating or sleeping well, and she had become very thin from worry. 2 days later, Tu Yao and Wu Ran went to Mo Wen's grave. Wu Ran chokingly told the deceased that finally, he and Black Cloud were cleared of all charges. Lord Muyang had paid the price for what he did. Everyone in Black Cloud was given justice. No one had to suffer under a false name anymore. When he heard Wu Ran say that 8 years was truly too long, that the scenery remained but the person was gone. There are those who were lucky to wait for the day justice came to light, but there are also those who could never wait. Tu Yao's heart felt squeezed. The pain inside him grew bigger and bigger, and sharp stings kept tormenting him, making him not know how to face everything. Seeing him silent, Wu Ran gently asked if the couple was having trouble again. She said that Yi Li had clearly become a wreck lately and had no family nearby to lean on, so she hoped he wouldn't hurt her even more. Then Wu Ran advised Tu Yao to cherish the person right in front of him. She and Mo Wen were separated by life and death. When they wanted to be together, the chance was gone. So if there's a problem, just say it all. Don't wait until the person is gone to feel regret. Those words made Tu Yao sink even deeper into his messy thoughts. Over here, Yi Li went to the Qingfeng Pavilion to hear the rest of the story about Master Lu and Miss Meng. She wanted to know if those two could finally be together. The storyteller continued to recount that Miss Meng's older brother forced her to remarry into a rich family in the next village. Pushed into a corner, she had to ask a neighbor to send a letter for help to Master Lu. After finding out, he immediately wanted to go save the woman he loved, but he was stopped by Madame Lu, who revealed the cause of his father's death. When he learned the girl he loved was actually the sister of the man who indirectly caused his father's death, Master Lu was completely stunned. As for Miss Meng, seeing the man she loved didn't come as promised, she thought he had betrayed his vow, so she painfully jumped into the river to kill herself. Upon hearing the news, Master Lu coughed up blood right on the spot. When she returned to the mansion, Yi Li heard that Tu Yao had come to her room, and worry and fear immediately rose in her heart. She slowly walked in and saw that he had clearly become thinner, with dark circles under his eyes from many sleepless nights. Tu Yao looked at her for a long time, and then slowly said that before he died, Lord Muyang revealed to him the truth about her mother. He asked her directly if her mother was the one who tricked his older brother into giving up the secret decree years ago. That question left Yi Li completely stunned. After a moment of silence, she finally nodded and admitted it. She explained that back then when the late emperor passed away, Tu Yao's older brother refused to hand over the secret decree and wanted to wait for Lord Hua to return. Her mother was tricked by someone else. She originally wanted to save people but ended up accidentally hurting them. Hearing those words, Tu Yao was in so much pain that his tears wouldn't stop falling. He chokingly asked why she knew everything but never told him. Yi Li could only honestly admit that she was scared. She was scared he would kick her out and scared of losing everything she had. Because of that, she tried to do everything to pay back the debt for her mother and make it up to him. Tu Yao smiled bitterly. He said that false accusation years ago made tens of thousands of people live in misery for 8 long years. Nothing can make up for those losses. He was extremely grateful that Yi Li had cured his legs. But what hurt him the most was not knowing if she came to him out of love or just to pay back the old debt. Hearing that, Yi Li immediately denied it in a panic. She wanted to explain, wanted to say that her feelings were never a lie, but her throat felt choked up, and she didn't know where to start. Tu Yao chokingly took out the cake wrapper that Yi Li had used years ago to wrap the cake she gave him when he was being escorted. Yi Li was very surprised to know he had kept it all those years, but right after that, her heart broke when she saw Tu Yao burn that keepsake with his own hands. He painfully felt that he couldn't accept a feeling built on guilt and making amends. Those words were like a knife cutting deep into Yi Li's heart, making her chest feel so tight she couldn't breathe. Even though his heart was in extreme pain, Tu Yao gritted his teeth and sat down to write the divorce letter, his tears falling non-stop and soaking the paper with every stroke. He never thought the day would come when he would have to personally end the relationship with the person he loved most. Yi Li quietly signed and put her fingerprint on the divorce letter, and then sat motionless like someone who had lost their soul. All hope in her heart seemed to have completely collapsed. In her most desperate moment, hallucinations appeared again. Yili saw the image of her younger self, making her think bitterly that only a crazy person would see themselves like that. Right then, Ching-chong appeared by her side again, and Teacher Zhou also came to ask who had made her heart ache so much. All the bottled-up emotions finally exploded, and Yili sobbed uncontrollably with a heart-wrenching pain. The next morning, Yili left a letter for Mo Yao and stood quietly in front of his room for a long time. Inside, Mo Yao had also stayed awake all night, so heartbroken that he couldn't close his eyes at all. Before leaving, Yili met Mo Yu and told the boy to study hard. After that, she left Prince Ding's mansion with Teacher Zhou and Ching-chong. A Jean brought the letter that Yili left to Mo Yao, but he didn't have enough courage to open it and read. As Yili's carriage passed by Shendexian, she saw Wei Zhuang still busy working, and then she continued her journey back to Mount Li to reunite with her loved ones there. At the Jingzhou office when Gu Zheng arrived, Zhang Fa asked about Zheng Shi's sentence. Gu Zheng said that he was convicted of abusing power, stealing property, and helping Lord Muyang fake evidence, so he was exiled and all his assets were seized. Everyone immediately congratulated Wang Wu for his great work in this case. Right then, Mo Yao appeared with the emperor's imperial decree. Gu Zheng was appointed as the vice-governor of the Jingzhou office, while Wang Wu was appointed as the chief of staff of the Ministry of War, temporarily helping with work at the Dali court. Everyone happily congratulated them, but Mo Yao was in a heavy mood. He was annoyed by the noise and coldly asked everyone to go back to work. Seeing him like that, Jean could only quietly shed tears out of worry. When evening came, Gu Zheng came to invite Mo Yao and everyone to go out and celebrate because Lord Muyang was finally brought to justice. Mo Yao was in no mood to join, but Gu Zheng kept laughing and talking, hoping he would give him some face just this once. The pressure in his heart made Mo Yao suddenly hit the table hard. Then he tried to calm down and just said that if he had time, he would find everyone later. When he finished his work, Mo Yao walked outside. All the pain he had suppressed for so long made it almost impossible for him to breathe. Jean was so worried his voice shook, advising him to return to the mansion to rest instead of staying here. But Mo Yao wanted to go to the Qingfeng Pavilion to find some alcohol to soothe his heart. His appearance made everyone very happy, especially Gu Zheng. He pulled Mo Yao down to sit and laughed loudly because he finally agreed to come. Facing continuous toasts, Mo Yao didn't refuse any of them. To give face to everyone, and because he wanted to forget the pain in his heart, he drank one cup after another. In the middle of the lively atmosphere full of laughter, only Jean stood quietly watching, his heart filled with unease. After getting dead drunk, Jean helped Mo Yao back to the mansion. As night fell in his daze, he kept calling out Yili's name. The intense longing kept wrapping around his mind. The more he remembered, the more it hurt, like his heart was being torn apart bit by bit. When he woke up from his drunken sleep, Mo Yao went to buy the 8-treasure duck that Yili loved and brought it to her room. He also bought 2 bags of candy, happily wanting to eat a meal with her like before. Seeing no one in the room, he thought Yili was somewhere or purposely hiding from him. While laughing and calling her name, he took the candy and put it into the familiar jar for her to eat later. Mo Yao stumbled around the room searching, his mouth still calling Yili's name, asking where she was hiding and to come out quickly to eat the duck with him. However, the room was left with only a cold silence. The next morning, Qingyu came to the room thinking Yili had returned, but instead saw Mo Yao lying asleep. Just waking up, Mo Yao also didn't understand what he had done. Right then, he saw the letter Yili wrote to Teacher Zhou still lying right there. He immediately told Qingyu to leave and then checked it himself. The more he looked, the more Mo Yao found that Yili had written many letters to everyone at Mount Li Academy, but they had never been sent. He read one letter after another, and a feeling of unease slowly rose in his heart. Not only were the letters still there, but even the jars of flower honey that Yili prepared to give to Teacher Zhou were still sitting in the house. Everything made him feel that something was wrong. Without thinking further, Mo Yao immediately ran to Shendexian to find Wei Zhuang and ask about Li Bai's whereabouts. After finding out where Li Bai was staying, he hurried there. As soon as they met, Mo Yao hurriedly asked why Yili wrote so many letters but didn't send them, and why the gifts prepared for everyone had never been taken. Hearing those words, Li Bai's face immediately changed, and he quickly asked where Yili was now. When he found out Mo Yao had let Yili leave, he immediately got angry. All the heartbreak and rage bottled up for so long exploded. In his eyes, Yili had done so many things for Mo Yao, yet in the end, she was pushed away in loneliness. Mo Yao was stunned when he heard the mention of Yili having to live alone and lonely in the mountains and forests. He immediately asked what exactly had happened at Mount Li Academy. Li Bai then brought up Ching-chong. From then on, Mo Yao finally learned the whole cruel truth that Yili had suffered for all those years. Returning to the mansion, Mo Yao was like a lost soul. He remembered every word Yili had said to him, every small detail that seemed normal back then. But now that he thought about it, they all held pain and signs of distress from a long time ago. He just had never realized it. Thinking about the loss, loneliness, and hurt that Yili had to experience, his heart hurt so much he couldn't breathe. Tears kept falling, as if they wanted to drain all the strength from that broken man. A little while later, Wu Ran came to Qionying residence and was shocked when she saw him. After just one night, Mo Yao's hair had turned almost entirely white. Mo Yao told his sister-in-law that he had to go to Mount Li to find Yi Li and bring her home. Hearing that, Wu Ran burst into tears. She knew Mount Li was heavily guarded and far from the capital, so how could the emperor easily let him leave for that long? But Mo Yao had made up his mind. He said he would ask the emperor himself, and if necessary, he would even quit his job and ask for a travel pass to go up the mountain. When he entered the palace to see the emperor, Mo Yao's haggard look really surprised him. Facing that questioning gaze, he only said that it was a family condition. After that, he asked for a travel pass to go to Mount Li to bring Yi Li back. At the same time, he suggested giving all the work at the Jingzhou office to Vice Governor Gu Jing for now, and he asked to resign from his position as governor because he admitted his skills were limited and his health was not good enough to handle such a big job. After the meeting, the emperor told the Empress Dowager about it. After not seeing him for just a few days, Mo Yao's hair had turned white like an old man's. Today, he even asked to quit his job, using the excuse of a fight between him and his wife as a reason to go to Mount Li to bring the princess back. The emperor couldn't help but wonder if there was some other secret plan hidden behind this. The Empress Dowager heard that and just calmly said that if he was still suspicious, he should just have people secretly watch him. Then she directly appointed Mo Yao as the Mount Li envoy, giving him a royal banner and many expensive gifts, using the title of representing the emperor to visit old friends at Mount Li. Everything was quickly ready, and not long after, Shan Shi and Mo Yao officially hit the road. When Shan Shi saw that the food at the rest stop was hard to swallow, he immediately suggested rushing to Qingping County to find a decent place to rest and eat, then continue the journey the next morning. However, Mo Yao wanted to set out right away, which made Shan Shi have to lead his men and follow. After a long journey without stopping, Mo Yao finally reached Mount Li Academy. Shan Shi took out the gold medallion and announced that he was following the orders of the Empress Dowager and the Emperor to bring royal rewards to visit Mount Li Academy. Seeing that, the guards immediately opened the gates for the group to enter. As soon as they stepped into the academy, a flock of crows flew over and kept trying to peck at Shan Shi's head, making him very panicked. The deeper he went inside, the more Mo Yao was stunned to see the ruined, quiet scene without a single soul. He immediately rushed around frantically to look for Yi Li. When he ran into the student study area, he saw tables and chairs covered in dust and cobwebs, as if no one had visited for many years. Mo Yao immediately told a Jin to split the people up to search. He ran everywhere from inside to out, and finally discovered the wind chime that Yi Li loved was still hanging there. Following the tracks, he hurriedly ran to the next room and saw Yi Li sitting there arranging books. His eyes immediately turned red from emotion. As for Yi Li, she was also very surprised to see him show up here, and her heart kept shaking when she saw Mo Yao's hair had turned white. Unable to hold back his feelings, Mo Yao immediately hugged Yi Li tightly, constantly apologizing for leaving her alone and for only finding out the whole truth now. When Mo Yao held Yi Li's hand and walked out, Shan Shi wondered where everyone in the academy had gone. Yi Li explained that everyone had gone behind the mountain to harvest rice. Her grandfather led everyone to clear a piece of dry land and channel water into the fields to plant rice to make a living. Before the sun sets, they will return. Hearing that, Shan Shi felt temporarily relieved and then went to look for some food. But when he reached the kitchen, he only saw old and broken utensils, without a single grain of rice or any oil or salt. Right then, General Lei came to report that although the rooms in the academy were still there, they were covered in thick dust as if they hadn't been used for a long time. Hearing that, Shan Shi suspected even more that everyone had left, so he ordered General Lei to lead men behind the mountain to check if there were rice fields like Yi Li said. On this side, when Yi Li took Mo Yao to her room to rest, he noticed the blanket was torn in many places and was pitifully thin, while the bed had to be propped up with stones underneath so it wouldn't collapse. When Yi Li tremblingly gave him a fruit she had just picked this morning, Mo Yao couldn't hold back his tears. He was extremely heartbroken knowing she had lived such a hard life at Mount Li Academy over the past years. Mo Yao kept apologizing for wrongly blaming Yi Li for no reason. He admitted that since she left, he had always lived in longing and guilt. He only hoped she could return to the mansion with him. Hearing those words, Yi Li also didn't stop crying when she learned that Mo Yao's white hair was because of her. When Shan Shi found out the rice fields had been abandoned for many years, he immediately questioned Yi Li, asking where everyone had actually gone. Because in the academy right now, besides her, there was no one else. Hearing those words, Yi Li suddenly regained a bit of her blurry awareness, and familiar memories slowly came back to her mind. Clearly in her memory, this place was still very busy with people, so how could there be nobody left? Yi Li immediately ran everywhere in a panic to search, and Mo Yao had to chase after her quickly. Shan Shi was already worn out, but he still had to struggle to follow them. When she got to the field behind the mountain, Yi Li stood frozen, not understanding why it was so empty, and her whole body shook from being totally confused. Shan Shi kept questioning her, saying she had lied to everyone because this rice field had been abandoned for at least 6 or 7 years, and basically no one was farming it. Hearing that, Mo Yao immediately yelled at him to shut up, but Yi Li still couldn't believe what she was seeing. She burst into tears, her whole body shook, and then she fainted right there, making Mo Yao extremely worried. Sitting by the bed watching Yi Li sleep deeply, Mo Yao felt so much pain and pity. Right then, a Jin came to report that Shan Shi's group had gone down the mountain during the night. Hearing that, Mo Yao immediately told a Jin to quickly go down the mountain and deliver a letter to the emperor for him. The next morning, Mo Yao woke up and found that Yili was gone. He immediately ran everywhere in a panic to find her, constantly calling her name in fear. It wasn't until he saw Yili coming back from outside that he finally breathed a sigh of relief and rushed over to hug her. Yili said she had just gone up the mountain to dig for bamboo shoots and pick mushrooms to cook for him. Then, she went to the kitchen herself to prepare the meal. When Mo Yao helped get the bowls and chopsticks, he found everything in the kitchen was covered in dust. Only 2 bowls and 1 pair of chopsticks belonging to Yili were clean. That sight made him feel even more bitter because he knew she had been living here all alone for a long time. Yili also told him to eat a bit of bland food for now, because later she would go to the eastern cliff to get some salty soil and boil it for salt. Mo Yao tried to smile and said her cooking was already great, but then he was stunned when he heard Yili ask him when he arrived last night and why his hair had turned white like that. At that moment, Mo Yao was terrified to the core. He realized that Yili had completely forgotten everything that happened yesterday. His eyes were red, and tears kept falling nonstop. He could only blame himself for making her suffer so much, but Yili still smiled as if nothing had happened. She said that later, when her grandfather and the teachers returned from harvesting rice, he would get to meet everyone. After eating and washing the dishes, Yili continued to sit and edit books. She told Mo Yao that her grandfather and the teachers were all old, and their minds and bodies were getting weaker every day, so the work of cross-checking, editing, collecting, and adding data mostly fell on the shoulders of her and her senior brothers. Today she had to finish the edited manuscripts for Zhang Wen and Zhang Geng, so she told him if he felt bored, he could go out for a walk. But Mo Yao only wanted to stay by her side. While sitting and watching Yili work, Mo Yao accidentally discovered the wheelchair she had built with her own hands. Looking at that object, he immediately remembered her words, saying she had studied under Heli to research how to treat bone injuries. Thinking about Yili secretly learning those things for him, he couldn't hold back his tears again. Yili gently said that years ago she promised his older brother she would find a way to cure Mo Yao's legs. This wheelchair was originally made to be brought down the mountain for him to use. It was just a pity that when they met again, he already had a much better one. Those words made Mo Yao even more heartbroken. He blamed himself for never doing anything good for Yili. From the start, he had suspected and acted cold toward her, and then promised to go back to the Yi mansion with her, but ended up breaking that promise. But in Yili's eyes, he was always someone who treated her very well. While walking around the academy, Mo Yao saw stone monkeys scattered throughout the mountain. At that moment, he finally understood that those mixed-up memories were what made Yili always believe there were many monkeys jumping around, biting things, and hanging around her. Meanwhile, Fang Jiao had set foot in Shangbei. He walked through the desert where he first met Ling Yun, carrying longing and memories that wouldn't fade. When stopping at a tribe, he quietly told the deceased girl that their family members were still living very peacefully. Right after that, he heard the people in the tribe retell a story from the past. When internal strife broke out in the tribe, it was Princess Ling Yun herself who risked everything to return to Shangbei and request the army to put down the rebellion. Later, the trade between Shangbei and Great Chu was also thanks to her stepping up to persuade the tribes to join together. To remember that contribution, the people here even built a statue to honor her. When he saw that statue, the image of Ling Yun from years ago holding the flower pot he once gave her appeared in Fang Jiao's mind, making the longing in his heart even more intense. The next morning, Yili prepared simple dishes and invited her grandfather and the teachers to have a meal, while also introducing Mo Yao to everyone. Because he loved Yili so deeply, Mo Yao also chose to step into her world and join her to keep up that warm reunion play. Yili happily introduced each person for him to meet, and Mo Yao also smiled and bowed to each one according to what she saw in her own world. Looking at those faces that only existed in Yili's memory, his heart was cut like a knife. Right after that, Mo Yao silently promised all the deceased that from now on, he would definitely use his whole life to love and protect Yili. No matter what he has to face, he will never let go of her hand ever again. Mo Yao remembered the doctor's advice that someone suffering a huge shock can easily have hallucinations and see dead people as if they were still alive. Thinking of that, his heart felt even more pain. Waiting until Yili was fast asleep, Mo Yao quietly went up the mountain alone. Before his eyes, the graves of the headmaster, the teachers, and all the students in the academy appeared one by one. At that moment, he finally fully believed that Teacher Zhou and Xing Chang really had passed away a long time ago. But what made him even more stunned was that Yili had prepared a grave for herself a long time ago. Carrying a heartbreaking pain, Mo Yao returned to the room and quietly lay down next to Yili. She softly reminded him that there were monkeys outside and told him to be careful. He gently replied that he wasn't afraid of monkeys and then pulled her into his arms. In the quiet night, Mo Yao slowly talked about the early days following his father and older brother to the battlefield. Back then he always told himself to be brave, but the first time he faced life and death with his own eyes, he was terrified because death was so scary. But now he was no longer afraid because he had Yili. Just thinking about the day we both grow old and are later buried next to each other, still able to hug like this, I have nothing to be afraid of anymore. Hearing those words, Yili's tears quietly fell. She chokingly promised to stay with him forever. Tu Yao's eyes also turned red. While crying, he gently comforted her, saying that from now on she had him. so she didn't need to be scared anymore. Everything she wanted to do, he would do for her. Waking up the next morning, Yili saw Tu Yao chopping wood in the yard. Seeing her wake up, he immediately started the stove to cook porridge. While eating, Yili happily invited him to go up the mountain to pick mushrooms together later. Tu Yao smiled and agreed, also saying he would fix the windows in her old bed. Right after that, he carefully fixed every door and reinforced each bed leg to make them very sturdy. When everything was carefully repaired, both of them held hands and went up the mountain to pick mushrooms. Those days passed very peacefully. The two of them were always together for every little thing, simple yet filled with happiness. In the evening, Yili leaned her head on Tu Yao's shoulder and watched the bright moon with him. Watching the moonlight quietly cover the mountains and forests, Tu Yao thought that for all those years, that moon had been Yili's friend through so many long nights, witnessing all the loneliness she had to endure. He silently vowed that from now on, whether the moon rose or set, he would stay with her forever. The next morning, Fang Jiao and Xiaoba arrived at Suishua Pass. Xiaoba couldn't help but be amazed seeing that the land once poor, lacking food and clothes, had now completely transformed after the war ended. It was just a pity that Ling Yun no longer had the chance to see that sight with her own eyes. Xiaoba advised Fang Jiao that at his age, he should learn to let go, but right at that moment, Fang Jiao caught Han Shi appearing there. He immediately walked over to ask why Han Shi was at Suishua Pass. Han Shi only replied that he followed his family members here to handle some business. When he found out the person Fang Jiao loved was Princess Ling Yun, Han Shi went quiet and advised him to hold back the pain. Fang Jiao asked if Sui Dai had been beheaded yet. Han Shi looked a bit awkward and only gave a casual answer that she had probably died a very miserable death. In the capital, Shun Shi returned and reported to the Empress Dowager that there were no traces of long-term residents on Mount Li anymore, and the whole academy now only had Princess Ding, Yi Li left. Gong Shuyang completely didn't believe that with Qing Yun's personality, he could secretly run away like that. Right then, the emperor brought a letter for the Empress Dowager to see. The letter clearly stated that the remaining people at the academy had all passed away one by one due to illness. That news shocked the Empress Dowager, and she immediately ordered Gong Shuyang to go to Mount Li to find out the truth. At Mount Li Academy, Mo Yao handwove a bamboo chair so Yili could sit and watch the moon more comfortably. Right then, they both suddenly heard an alarm sounding from the foot of the mountain. Gong Shuyang had led his people to the academy. Mo Yao calmly told Yili that Gong Shuyang only wanted to come up the mountain for a visit, and he had cleverly told them to come back in a few days. Then he smiled and made a date with Yi Li to watch the sunrise together the next morning. Yi Li nodded happily. She said she knew the best place to watch the sunrise on Mount Li, a place where just by reaching out, it felt like she could hold the entire sun in the palm of her hand. Right after that, Mo Yao took Yi Li to watch the moon and stars, waiting together until morning for the sunrise. He softly told her to look at the stars in the sky. Even though there were only a few, each one was bright, and even the night clouds were very special. Layers rolled over each other to create an unusually beautiful scene. Yi Li laughed, saying that with such a rich imagination, Mo Yao should really be a writer. Mo Yao just smiled and replied, "Every moment of the scenery is worth enjoying, just like every stage of life. People have to face it and walk through it." Hearing that, Yi Li teased him for being only in his 20s, yet talking like a nagging old man. Mo Yao just laughed and said nothing more, waiting for the sunrise with her in silence, worried that the clouds might be too thick and hide the rising sun. Mo Yao decided to take Yi Li to another place. Before going, he gently said that no matter what happened, he would always be by her side. But just as they went up the mountain, Yi Li fell into a hallucination again, seeing countless monkeys appear in front of her, making her whole body shake with fear. Mo Yao immediately held her tight, gently reassuring her that he was here and she didn't need to be afraid. Strangely, with Mo Yao by her side, the monkeys in the hallucination slowly disappeared. Right after that, Yi Li saw each of the graves lying quietly on the mountainside with her own eyes. She stood frozen, collapsing on her knees before her grandfather's grave and bursting into tears. The painful memories of those years came rushing back. When the plague broke out, her grandfather, the teachers, and all the students got sick, and their lives hung by a thread. Yi Li panicked and wanted to go down the mountain to find a doctor to save them, but as soon as she ran for help, her senior brothers caught her and locked her in the kitchen. Her senior brother stopped her because Mount Li Academy had decided to close the mountain to protest Gui Jin's act of stealing the throne and the country. If she went down the mountain for help now, it would be like bowing to a rebel and ruining the headmaster's lifelong reputation. But Yi Li didn't care about reputation. She only hoped everyone could survive. Her senior brothers kept reassuring her that He Lai would definitely find a cure and everything would be okay. But Yi Li cried out in despair because the medicine in the academy had run out, and she begged them to open the door so she could go down the mountain. All she got was helplessness. Not long after, Qing Chong came to see Yi Li, and she immediately asked Qing Chong to go down the mountain to find government soldiers for help. But Qing Chong had also caught the disease. After just a few steps, she stumbled and collapsed on the ground. Having no other choice, Yi Li grabbed a piece of firewood, smashed the window, and crawled out. As soon as she saw Qing Chong collapse, she panicked and rushed to find someone to help. But the scene before her eyes made Yi Li completely frozen. Everyone in the academy had passed away. Even her grandfather could not fight off the disease. In just a moment, in the vast Mount Li Academy, She was the only one left alive. Yili cried heart-wrenchingly, the pain like 10,000 arrows piercing her heart. Finally, in the middle of total loneliness, she could only quietly pull each body away by hand to bury them, saying goodbye to each loved one as they went to their final resting place. Her small body forced Yili to try her best to pull each body up the mountain and then dig each grave herself to bury them. After sending everyone to their final resting place, her whole body was dazed like a soulless corpse. Staying awake all night, by the next day, Yili dug a grave for herself with her own hands. Lying in the cold ground, she couldn't stop crying in despair, her whole body shaking and sobbing until her heart felt twisted. Just then, it started to snow, piling more pain into her heart when in just one night, all her loved ones had left her, leaving her all alone to face the harsh world. In her most desperate moment, Yili suddenly saw her grandfather reappear, gently reaching out his hand to pull her up. He told her that wild monkeys often appeared behind the mountain, so don't run there anymore. Yili obediently nodded, saying that she would only stay at the academy. Because the pain was too great, she chose to create hallucinations to lie to herself, which was how she could survive until today. But now, the cruel reality forced her to face everything. Her helpless and painful crying echoed through the forest, tearing at people's hearts. Mo Yao could only hold Yili tight, giving her warmth and quietly letting her feel that from now on, he would always be by her side. When evening came at Sueshua Pass, Master Feng secretly went to meet Mo Li. As the snow started to fall, Han Yu brought a coat to Han Shi, and then the two of them sat together to watch the snow. Han Shi shared that before, he never knew where he truly wanted to go until he met Yili and got to stay at Shendexian, where every day he cleaned the shop, welcomed guests, ate and slept with the brothers, fought for every piece of meat on the plate, and shared half a hot cake. He insisted that he wasn't afraid of hardship or exhaustion, and he didn't need a big house or wide doors. Hearing that, Han Yu advised Han Shi to leave. Han Shi immediately got angry because his big brother had committed so many crimes for Sui Dai. If wealth and honor had to be traded for things like that, he would rather not have them for his whole life. Hearing those words, Han Yu finally agreed. Inside, Painter Feng was meticulously redrawing the defense map of the general's mansion. Right then, a follower came to tell Mo Li that Lord Muyang had died in prison. Qin Song was exiled, Zhou Yang was escorting the coffin back home, Yili had also left Prince Ding's mansion to return to Mount Li, and Prince Ding still hadn't made any moves yet. After listening, Mo Li just stayed quiet and thought deeply about his plans. After finishing the defense map of the general's mansion at Sueshua Pass, the follower thanked Painter Feng for working hard over the past years. Having finished studying the map, Mo Li stepped out into the snow and casually played a song on the lute. At the same time, Qi Hu led his subordinates to secretly sneak into the general's mansion. After killing a few guards, he snuck straight into the room with the goal of assassinating the general. The next morning, Gong Shuyang led his people up Mount Li. When he saw with his own eyes the graves stretching across the academy, he was completely stunned, unable to believe that the Mount Li Academy of the past now only had the old scenery while the people of old were gone. Inside the academy, Yili just finished organizing the books and smiled as she walked outside to look at the clear blue sky and the birds flying freely. After seeing everything with his own eyes, Gong Shuyang immediately sent a rider to the capital to report the news. The Empress Dowager was extremely shocked when she got the news that 46 teachers and students of Mount Li Academy had all died from the plague. The Emperor was also stunned to learn that out of a total of 47 people at the academy, everyone except Yili had lost their lives. Although they held out for a while with a small amount of food, since there was absolutely no medicine for treatment, in the end, no one survived. The minister deeply admired the spirit of Mount Li Academy because until their last breath, they refused to open the mountain gates. After hearing everything, the emperor could only sigh quietly with great regret. Lord, he told the emperor that the teachers who created theories and wrote books were trapped at Mount Li, choosing to die to keep their integrity. Famous scholars from all over will definitely come to pay their respects when they hear the news. At that time, public feeling will rise high. If it is skillfully guided or quietly pushed, nothing will be able to stop that wave. The focus of public opinion will point straight at the person who forced Mount Li to close years ago. Now that Mount Li has faced a great disaster, the truth buried for many years is finally exposed. The common people will surely remember the original purpose of Mount Li closing, and from there, they will wholeheartedly turn toward the dynasty and the emperor. Hearing that, the emperor thought that for nearly half a year, the Empress Dowager had been gradually giving back the power to rule to him, so maybe she would not have any other intentions. The minister then said that if the Empress Dowager still has not returned all the power by next year, then it will not be too late to figure things out. But Lord, he disagreed, arguing that if the Empress Dowager still does not want to let go of power by next year, does that mean he has to wait until he is 30? At that time, will there be any chance like Mount Li left to turn things around? Seeing the emperor was still afraid he was not strong enough, Lord, he stated that there are many talented people in court who always remember his kindness, and there is absolutely no need to keep leaning on anyone's support. Those words made the emperor waver even more. The next morning, anonymous poems appeared and were being spread among the people, condemning the Empress Dowager for being bossy and controlling the court, which made her extremely angry. The emperor immediately ordered a search for the person behind those poems to throw them in prison. The minister explained that the people were just feeling sad and angry after hearing the news about Mountly Academy, and once the pain passes, they will naturally calm down. Hearing that, the Empress Dowager agreed to let anyone who wants to visit Mountly go freely, and she ordered the Ministry of Rites to hold a ceremony at the academy to remember the dead and comfort the survivors. Taking advantage of the people's strong feelings, Lord he boldly advised the Empress Dowager to follow the people's will and hand over all power to the emperor. That suggestion caught the Empress Dowager completely off guard, while the emperor immediately said he still needed her guidance. Right after that, he asked the Empress Dowager to move to the royal villa in Fuchang County to rest, waiting for the trouble to pass before welcoming her back. The officials also knelt together to beg the Empress Dowager to leave the palace to recover and let the emperor handle the country's business. Facing that scene, the Empress Dowager was completely stunned. She didn't expect that after years of plotting day and night, she would end up having to give back her power. On this side, Mo Yao told Yi Li that the Empress Dowager was about to move to the royal villa in Fuchang County to rest, and the emperor had also cleared the name of Mountly Academy. Yi Li replied that she had already expected this outcome. According to her, there were 4 main powers back then: Lu Chang, the Yi family, Lord Muyang, and Guijin. For the past 8 years, Lord Muyang acted however he wanted, and if Guijin hadn't secretly allowed it, how could he have abused his power like that? But in the end, she was still seen as an innocent person. Mo Yao said in a low voice, "The blood on her hands will never dry over the years." That night, when Empress Dowager Guijin fell asleep, she had one nightmare after another. In the dream, Zizhou appeared full of hatred because she was tricked into giving up the decree to harm Prince Ding's mansion, block Mountly, and kill everyone in the way. Qin Zheng also appeared, mocking Guijin because everyone had finally left her, and even her own son had turned against her. Guijin was once a star student at Mountly Academy, with big dreams of being like a man standing tall in the world, building a beautiful country with her own hands. But she was worn down bit by the power struggles in the inner palace. She was not satisfied and did not accept that fate. In her heart, she always believed that if this world didn't give women a chance to rise, she would be the one to change the world's rules, even if that path meant walking through rivers of blood. The next morning, the Empress Dowager learned that Zizhou was buried at Zhenyi Temple outside the city, so she immediately told Shun she to prepare wine and gifts, and picked a few people to go with her to pay respects. When he heard the news that the Empress Dowager had reached the royal villa, the emperor ordered Chao Huan to draft a decree to clear the names and grant favors to those who died from the plague at Mountly Academy, and to track down the people who framed them for strict punishment according to the law. At the same time, the court will recruit talents from Mountly, and the works they left behind will be handled by the Imperial Academy to be edited and spread throughout the world. In addition, Headmaster Qing Yan was posthumously titled Marquis Wenzheng, Teacher Chu Yun was posthumously titled Count Wenzu, and Yili was titled County Lady Wenjiao. The minister thought that clearing the names and spreading the teachings were reasonable, but the title for Yi Li was a bit too generous. The emperor explained that even before Great Chu was founded, Mountly Academy had already existed and trained countless talented people to help the court. They always stayed on the right path, but in the end were isolated on the mountain, suffering from illness until the talents faded away. That is not just a regret for the world, but also a mistake by the court. Today's favors are not given out of personal feelings, but are the court's late respect and justice that came too slowly from Mountly. After hearing those words, the officials had no more objections. At Prince Ding's mansion, Yili was having a headache trying to choose a manager for Shendexian, but she still hadn't found a suitable candidate. Just then, Mo Yao stepped up and said regretfully that if he had known hiring someone was this hard, he wouldn't have let Wei Zhuang leave before. Yili laughed and said that nobody would quit an official position to become a merchant. Mo Yao said he would ask Gu Zheng to help pick some capable people. Right then, a Jin found a candidate named Sheng Xiao. This person once passed the top exams, and then went to Jiangnan to study. His family was in business, so he was very experienced. It was just a pity that 3 years ago, he ran into bandits who cut off 2 of his fingers. Qing Yu and Xing Er both advised Yi Li to pick this man because he was handsome, talented, and kind. Looking at the portrait, Yi Li also had to admit he was indeed good-looking, which made Mo Yao instantly jealous, and he pulled her away to eat. During the meal, Wu Ran reported that Yi Li's senior Wei had started his job. Since he used to teach MOU math, she wanted to bring some gifts to congratulate him. Yi Li happily agreed to go along. Mentioning the hiring, Mo Yao immediately opposed Sheng Xiao, thinking that since his family had their own business, there must be another reason for him to come all the way to the capital to find work. Yi Li just smiled and said, "He will come to Shendexian in a few days. It won't be too late to ask him then." Hearing that, Mo Yao got so jealous that his whole body seemed soaked in the smell of vinegar. Seeing him like that, Yi Li picked up some fish and fed it to him, making a Jin, who was standing nearby, unable to stop himself from laughing. That night, Mo Yao looked at the application cards and scolded a Jin for doing a careless job, even daring to accept the card of a 76-year-old man. Yi Li found it strange because he had never cared about Shendexian before, but now he was interested in every little thing. She advised him to find something to do, because staying idle forever wasn't a good long-term plan. Mo Yao just smiled and said he was very busy, such as reading, teaching MOU, helping his sister-in-law manage the mansion, and in a few days, he also had to fix the fishing rods for a picnic. But the most important task right now was still monitoring Yi Li's eating, resting, and taking medicine on time. Only when she was completely recovered would he think about other things. Hearing that, Yi Li smiled, blew out the candle, and they both went to sleep. The next morning, while Mo Yao was focused on checking his fishing rod, he suddenly saw Yi Li in the room getting ready to go out. Right at that time, she was dressed up very beautifully and said she wanted to go to Chongqing Ward to meet third uncle for some business. Hearing that, Tu Yao immediately showed his displeasure because she was still sick. Yi Li just gently explained that she would be sitting in a carriage where the sun and rain wouldn't reach her, and she would be back right away. Seeing that she had made up her mind, Tu Yao told his people that they must take her to have her pulse checked by 5 p.m. When they arrived at Chongqing Ward, Yishin was non-stop scolding Ying about everything from wanting to open a loan shop and mining to almost getting involved in smuggling government goods. Ying was scolded so much she could only bow her head and cry, while Yi Li stepped in to make peace. Ying also blamed herself for being so dumb, not even knowing which items were banned. Seeing that, Yishin said if she was really bored, she should just come to his place. He was ready to let her be the little boss of the shop. Yi Li also advised Ying that if she really wanted to be independent, she should find a suitable place and open a shop she liked. Hearing that advice, Ying happily nodded and even gave Yi Li the trendiest hair accessory from the East Market to show her thanks. Not only that, she also said that if one day Yi Li had a fight with Prince Ding and had nowhere to go, she should come find her. Hearing that, Yi Li just smiled and thanked her. Seeing the two sisters getting along and loving each other like that, Yishin was also very happy and promised that even if the sky fell, he would stand up to protect both of them. Meanwhile, after returning from fishing, Tu Yao told Ajin to take the biggest fish to the palace, and the rest to be used for soup to help Yi Li recover her health. But while he was secretly looking to see if Yi Li had come home, he was suddenly caught by Xing Er. She reported that Yi Li and the new manager of Shendexian had gone to the Huaning kiln to get a new batch of porcelain. Just knowing Yi Li had hired Qing Xiao, Tu Yao immediately got so jealous his eyes turned red. By evening, when Yi Li returned to Prince Ding's mansion, Xing Er mentioned that the prince had been waiting for her for a long time. Hearing that, Yi Li immediately went to find Tu Yao at the hot spring and retold her day's trip. She said she went to Chongqing Ward first to see Ying and third uncle, then heard the kiln had just produced a very rare batch of light pink porcelain, so she stopped by to take a look. Luckily, Manager Sheng was quick and sharp-eyed, so he managed to save 2 for her. Hearing this, the look of jealousy on Mo Yao's face became even more obvious. He only reminded her that she had forgotten her pulse-checking appointment again today and told her to never forget it again next time. Yi Li obediently nodded and agreed. The next morning, news reached the court that General Hung had been murdered, which made the emperor extremely angry. The minister thought they should immediately send an envoy to investigate the truth, to calm the people down. However, Li Thua argued that the most urgent thing was to send someone with the ox tally to guard Suishua Pass. Hearing that, Gong Shuyang immediately nominated Prince Ding, Mo Yao, for this heavy responsibility. At Prince Ding's mansion, Yi Li was lying around feeling bored when Mo Yao planned to take her out for a walk. Right then, Gong Shuyang arrived to report that General Hung had been murdered. A horse groom in the mansion came forward to confess, saying he held a grudge and killed his master because he was treated harshly. After hearing this, Mo Yao was suspicious because there was no way a regular horse groom could kill a battle-hardened general. Gong Shuyang believed the truth could be investigated later, and the most urgent thing now was Suishua Pass, a dangerous gateway in the north of Great Chu, and only Prince Ding was capable of guarding it. Standing outside the window, Mo accidentally heard the whole story and immediately ran pouting to his mother to report that Mo Yao was about to go to the border to guard it. After Gong Shuyang left, Yi Li stepped forward. Seeing her, Mo Yao asked if she still saw Qing Chong, Teacher Chu, and everyone in her dreams. Yi Li just shook her head slightly, then she pulled Mo Yao outside to secretly follow Sheng Xiao. She heard that he snuck out of the mansion every night and didn't return until the third watch. Sure enough, when Sheng Xiao stepped outside, the two of them immediately tiptoed and followed him. Yi Li wanted to investigate clearly before deciding whether to keep him at Shendexian because she was worried a competitor might have planted a spy. Unexpectedly, Sheng Xiao went to the ferry dock just to meet the person he loved. While those two were walking by, Yi Li and Mo Yao had to hug each other tightly to avoid being spotted. Taking that opportunity, Yi Li also told Tu Yao that no matter what decision he made, she would support him with all her heart. Those words made Tu Yao very moved, and he quietly held her tight. On the other side, Wen Ran was restless because she was worried Tu Yao would be in danger going to the border. So the next morning, she brought Nanny Tu to meet Yi Li and put her in charge of everything related to food and daily life for both Yi Li and Tu Yao. Wen Ran also emphasized that Nanny Tu was very skilled in healthcare, especially regarding having and raising children, so keeping her around would be very helpful. Hearing that, Yi Li could only agree. Right after taking the job, Nanny Tu immediately checked all of Yi Li's makeup and concluded that cosmetics from Chuyan Pavilion were not good for her health if used for a long time, and even the plants in the yard had to be changed to be suitable. Seeing Yi Li eat too many plums, she took them away and replaced them with another dish because she was afraid it would affect her body. Suddenly being strictly controlled like that made Yi Li feel very helpless. Not stopping there, Nanny too even went down to the kitchen and told the servants that although the princess was still young, she had to be cared for even more carefully. She personally made a nutritious menu and a health-restoring herbal prescription, demanding that from now on, every meal must follow strict rules. In just one day, Yili's entire daily routine was changed, and even going to the garden to water flowers was no longer allowed, leaving her dazed and speechless. That afternoon when she saw Tu Yao return, when Ran brought him a bowl of calming soup to nourish him. After finishing his work, Tu Yao followed her lead and drank the whole bowl of soup. When night came, knowing he had returned to the mansion, Yili went to find him right away, but upon arriving, she found the room door was locked from the inside. Tu Yao locked the door tight because he was affected by an aphrodisiac incense. His whole body was burning hot and very uncomfortable. But Yili playfully used a knife to pick the lock and stepped in. As soon as she saw his condition, she immediately understood this was aphrodisiac incense that Ran had secretly used, wishing for the two of them to have a child soon. Yili then helped Tu Yao back to the room to treat the drug effect, leaving everything else until tomorrow. The next morning, Tu Yao went to see Ran to ask for the reason. Ran could not hide her worry, thinking that sooner or later Tu Yao would have to go guard the border, so she hoped he and Yili would have a child because she now had no relatives left by her side. When they walked outside, Yili understood Tu Yao's mood, so she kept encouraging him. She said this time it was only to guard the border, not to go to a battlefield, and besides, she would frequently write letters to report her safety. Hearing that, Tu Yao emotionally held her tight to say thank you. However, because he always suspected Mo Yao, Li Duo suddenly asked the emperor to let him guard Suishua Pass, which made the emperor and the minister very surprised. When Mo Yao found out, he immediately went to the palace to object because Suishua Pass is extremely important to Great Chu, while Li Duo has never been on a battlefield. The emperor was also worried that Mo Yao's legs had just fully healed, he was newly married and still had no children, and Suishua Pass always has many hidden dangers from both natural disasters and people. Seeing that the emperor had made up his mind, Mo Yao had no choice but to accept. Yili was very happy to hear that he didn't have to go to Suishua Pass, but Mo Yao was still worried because he felt something was wrong. At Suishua Pass, Han Yu made a fake travel pass to run away with Han Shi, while Fang Jiao was determined to kill Sui Dai with his own hands to avenge Ling Yun. Knowing that Han Yu and Han Shi planned to escape, Sui Dai immediately led her people to chase and kill them. Just as the two sides were fighting, Fang Jiao passed by, drew his sword, and rushed in, determined to take Sui Dai's life. Thanks to Xiao Ba's help by risking his life, Fang Jiao finally killed Sui Dai, but he had to watch Xiao Ba fall right in front of him without being able to save him. She was also in extreme pain when Han Yu lost his life. At Prince Ding's mansion, Mo Yao told Yili that he still felt things weren't right, so he ordered a Jin to go to Suishua Pass to investigate carefully, only hoping it was all just suspicion and that the border was still peaceful. But the truth was terrifying. It turned out that Li Duo was actually Mo Li's man, and Mo Li was not dead and was plotting a rebellion to take back the throne he believed belonged to him. Right after that, he ordered his subordinates to assassinate Chao Huan. On the way to Suishua Pass, a Jin accidentally met Fang Jiao, who was covered in injuries. Fang Jiao immediately went back to tell Mo Yao that Li Duo was Mo Li's spy. When the emperor found out Li Duo had betrayed them, and Mo Li had only faked his death to trick everyone, he was extremely furious. Mo Yao immediately asked to put on his armor and go to war to wipe out all the rebels. The emperor was very moved and immediately agreed. Before the day he left, when Mo Yao returned to the mansion, Yili quietly dyed his white hair back for him. Yili personally put the armor on and handed the sword to Mo Yao, only hoping he could win and return home safely. Mo Yao also promised he would definitely come back to her. When Ying found out Mo Li was still alive, she was overjoyed, but right after that, she stood frozen when she heard the news that he was raising troops to rebel. Yili advised her younger sister to publicly cut all ties with Mo Li and leave the capital to find a quiet place to hide. But Ying only hoped to see Mo Li one last time. Understanding her feelings, Yili had no way to stop her. At Suishua Pass, Mo Li knew the emperor had sent Mo Yao to guard it, so he immediately ordered his men to prepare for battle. Over here, Mo Yao also quickly set up his troops, determined to hold the pass. However, the first battle at Luohe Pass failed, which made the emperor restless, and none of the court officials could come up with a workable plan. Right then, the Empress Dowager returned to the palace. Seeing the emperor worried, she calmly advised that if you use someone, you shouldn't doubt them, and if you doubt them, you absolutely shouldn't use them, as that is the core logic of ruling a country. In the evening, Lord Hua came to see the Empress Dowager and asked directly whether the tragedy at Mountly Academy was really just a natural disaster, or if there was someone behind it pulling the strings. The Empress Dowager replied that only today did she find out Mountly had been blocked, with food and medicine cut off, and the person who went to Mountly 8 years ago was Lord Hua, not her. Lord Hua felt extremely guilty because that year he went up the mountain only to stop the Empress Dowager's sacrifice ceremony. After that, he continued to question whether the Eastern Palace fire, the Lost Secret Decree, and Mountly closing were all part of a plan for the Empress Dowager to take power. The Empress Dowager stated that the matter of Mountly had nothing to do with her and immediately ordered that Lord Hua was no longer allowed to involve himself in court affairs. Feeling extremely furious, Lord Hua let out words asking whether she could rest in peace when she goes to the afterlife and meets the late emperor and those who died unfairly. Right then, the emperor, standing outside, had heard the entire conversation and was completely shocked. When he was discovered, he immediately turned around and left. The next morning, Yili heard rumors everywhere that Mo Yao had surrendered and Luo He Pass had fallen. She immediately sent the butler to find Gu Zheng to investigate the root of this false news. Knowing the situation, the Empress Dowager summoned Yi Li to the palace to stay for a few days, giving the reason of keeping her company to help her feel less lonely and avoid gossip from outsiders. Yi Li had to follow the royal order. Right after that, she wrote a letter to Mo Yao to report everything. When he finished reading the letter, Mo Yao immediately understood that the Empress Dowager summoning Yi Li to the palace was just an excuse, while the real goal was to keep her as a hostage to control him. At night, while the Empress Dowager was resting, a flock of crows suddenly flew in, making her very scared. Hearing the noise, Yi Li immediately ran over to chase the crows away. After calming down, the Empress Dowager mentioned that Lord Hua once questioned her about the tragedy at Mount Li, and then asked if Yi Li thought that way too. Yi Li just quietly said that once you have chosen your path, you must accept the price to pay. When people live in this world, every step involves gain and loss. If you cannot keep your original wish, then all ideals are just like towers on paper or the reflection of the moon in the water. Hearing those words, the Empress Dowager could not hold back her tears. On the battlefield after a fierce battle, Mo Yao received news that Li Duo had committed suicide, while Mo Li led an elite army and ran away. By the next morning, news of the victory quickly reached the capital. Mo Yao had destroyed all of Mo Li's main rebel forces. Meanwhile, Ying finally met Mo Li again. With just a few simple taro roots, she still felt very happy. She told stories of the old days rowing boats with Yi Li and realized that every time that story was mentioned, Mo Li would rarely smile. But he only knew how to quietly sigh, not knowing how to face her feelings. After many days in the palace, Yi Li also returned to Prince Ding's mansion. Wu Ren happily reported the news that because Mo Yao won a big victory at the front line, the emperor gave many rewards. Right then, Mo Yao's letter was also sent back. Yi Li smiled as she read, because he told every detail of what happened at Suishua Pass, making the longing in her heart even more intense. Over here, the emperor called Lord Hua to the palace and sincerely asked if he was worthy of being a ruler. Lord Hua replied, "An emperor who cares for his subjects, who knows how to feel ashamed and reflects for the sake of the world, that is the foundation of being worthy." Hearing that, the emperor felt relieved and hoped Lord Hua would help him stabilize the situation at court. However, Lord Hua admitted he was old and weak, so he advised the emperor to skillfully use talented people and gather the wisdom of the officials to overcome this difficult time. In another place, Mo Li bluntly admitted to Ying that he was naturally heartless and full of calculations. He could calculate every move on the board, but he didn't count on falling in love with Yi Li, and he certainly didn't expect his father to fail so early, causing his entire game to fall apart. Therefore, he didn't want Ying to stay by his side or get caught in this inescapable whirlpool. But Ying was determined to follow him, stating that she didn't need wealth or fame, only wishing to be with the person she loved for the rest of her life. Sadly, in Mo Li's heart, only life and death gambles remained. Finally, he turned his back and left, ignoring Yi Ying's desperate cries as she tried to pull him back. In court, when the emperor heard Mo Yao had captured Yunzhou and Suazhou and destroyed all the rebels, he was overjoyed. He immediately gave Mo Yao more honors, named Wu Ren a national madam, and restored Mo Yu's status in the royal family. He named Yi Li a first-rank district princess, and ordered a grand welcome for Mo Yao's victory parade in 5 days. But Mo Li wouldn't give up. Knowing Mo Yao would return to the capital in 5 days, he decided to strike in 3 days, using the city's chaos to attack the palace directly. Just when the Lantern Festival was at its busiest, a sudden fire broke out, causing chaos everywhere. Chi Hu took the chance to lead an attack. Li Bai and Han Shi worked perfectly together to fight the enemy. But while facing Chi Hu, a sudden explosion blew them both away, seriously injuring Li Bai's eyes. In another scene, Mo Li led his troops into the palace to rebel, bodies were everywhere, and the bloody sight was suffocating. Lord Hua, despite being old and weak, personally led the fight. With a strong will, he directly killed Sui Xian. Seeing his subordinate die, Mo Li got angry and rushed to duel Lord Hua. Just as Mo Li was about to kill Lord Hua, Yi Li suddenly appeared, knocked him back, and saved the old man in time. She didn't hesitate to scold Mo Li for treating human lives like trash, just for his ambition for the throne. Knowing he had no way out, Mo Li drew his sword to fight Yi Li. Even with her great skills, Yi Li slowly began to lose ground. At that critical moment, Mo Yao appeared just in time, defeated Mo Li and saved Yi Li. But Mo Li was still stubborn and wouldn't surrender. Finally, he fell under a rain of arrows while Yi Li watched in shock. Before his last breath, he just quietly wondered if a person wants to get what they desire, they must take it with their own hands. So where exactly did he go wrong? 6 months after Mo Li's failed rebellion, the court carried out a big purge both inside and outside the government. Luckily, thanks to Gong Shuyang and Mo Yao stepping up to stabilize the situation, the capital quickly regained its peace. The Empress Dowager fell seriously ill after the incident and looked much older in a short time. Although the emperor knew clearly what she had done, he still hesitated to issue an imperial decree because he felt very conflicted inside. As for Mo Yao, he set out for Suishua Pass to clean up the mess after the war. Wu Ran was worried Yi Li would be lonely staying behind, so she wanted to take her everywhere she went. Even though she didn't want to, Yi Li found it hard to say no, but one day she couldn't stand the longing anymore and quietly left during the night, riding a horse alone for thousands of miles to find Mo Yao. After many days and nights of nonstop traveling, Yi Li finally reached the military camp. Her unexpected appearance made Mo Yao both surprised and overjoyed. Although he was happy to see his loved one again, he couldn't hide his worry when thinking about the long distance and the danger she had faced. Yi Li gently promised never to take such a risk again, and then leaned her head on Mo Yao's shoulder, enjoying the peaceful feeling after being apart for so long. After Mo Yao returned in victory, he and his close friends held a feast to celebrate. During the feast, Fang Jiao kept the secret that something was wrong with his eyes, only saying that he wanted to travel everywhere to see the beautiful scenery, and his relationship with Yu Sheng was just like floating weeds meeting and then parting ways. Even though she was very worried, Yi Li still couldn't stop his decision. On this side, Li Bai brought some money to give to Yu Sheng, and then quietly said goodbye. When Yu Sheng didn't want him to leave, he purposely said cold and harsh words to make her give up. Although his heart was in extreme pain, Li Bai still believed that staying away was the only way for Yu Sheng to have a better life. Later, the Empress Dowager summoned Yi Li to the palace and asked about how she had helped Great Chu dig canals to link the south and north, provided plenty of food, made education flourish, and opened schools for girls everywhere so children from poor families also had a chance to become officials. With those contributions, she believed she had done more than even the late emperor. Yi Li calmly repeated her grandfather's comment about the Empress Dowager, saying that she had talent but lacked kindness. She could hold power over the world but found it hard to carry the suffering of the common people. However, the Empress Dowager still didn't realize her mistakes, thinking that everything was forced by the times. If she didn't kill others, she would be killed by them. Yi Li pointed out that sacrificing the people's land for convenient transportation in the capital was just like how she sacrificed the Black Cloud Guards years ago to gain control of the court, and sacrificed the legitimate bloodline of the Eastern Palace to reach the highest position. The prosperous era she chased was actually just an obsession because she was never officially crowned. It was all just to prove to the throne, the court, and the world that she deserved to sit in that position. Finally, Yi Li also frankly admitted that the Empress Dowager was the last person she wanted to act against. But whether she is guilty or not, the laws and justice of Great Chu will make a fair judgment themselves. After saying that, she asked for permission to leave the palace. After that incident, Ying lived peaceful days with her close maid. Luckily, Yushin also found out about Li Bai's illness, so she decided to always stay by his side and take care of him, never leaving for a single step. Han, she was still lost for many days after all the events, but then someone came to advise him to return to Shendexian because Yi Li was always worried and waiting for him. In the palace, with her weak breath, the Empress Dowager told the Emperor not to go easy on her just because she was his mother. Always stay honest, don't follow my example, and don't carry the weight of my sins. After her final goodbye, the Empress Dowager quietly closed her eyes and passed away, leaving a deep pain in the Emperor's heart. As the ruler of the world, the Emperor finally chose fairness. He made all the Empress Dowager's crimes public and ordered to strip away all of Guojin's titles. He canceled the worship in the ancestral temple, erased all her titles, recorded all her sins in the history books, and buried her with the rituals of a commoner. When all the false accusations were exposed, Mount Li Academy also officially opened its doors again. The busy 3 scene from the old days was finally restored. According to the Emperor's order, Wei Zhuang became the headmaster to continue the legacy and lead the academy. Standing in front of Mount Li once more, Yi Li saw her grandfather, the teachers, and everyone else as if they were smiling and coming back to life in her memory. But this time, it was no longer a hallucination to comfort herself, but real happiness because she did not let down everyone's expectations. She cleared the false names for Mount Li and helped the academy continue its tradition to live forever in people's hearts. A happy ending has closed the movie where justice and righteousness were finally brought to light. And those who truly loved each other all found complete happiness. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel to watch even more great movies. Thank you, everyone.